Chapter 1801. The ancestral land of a mortal continent collapsed. The nine-colored heavenly coffin emerged and pressed towards the battlefield. It seems to be a coffin. Dao Shui was a bit absent-minded. She knew that the ancient celestial emperors also possessed a special coffin. The celestial emperor attached great importance to this item, often observing it and pondering over it. That coffin left a deep impression on Dao Shui. It was related to some extremely terrifying things. She was very clear that in the history of the ancient celestial emperors, even when he became the celestial emperor, he encountered an unparalleled enemy. Even the ancient celestial emperors almost died in battle. That enemy was extremely terrifying. Even with the celestial court's strongest forces, they still couldn't resist. Instead, they had to suffer the misfortune of being destroyed by the enemy. In the end, the ancient celestial emperors still defied the heavens and rose to power. His cultivation took a huge step forward, suppressing the enemy. However, it was still very difficult to destroy him. This meant that this enemy was too powerful. Even with suppression, they still couldn't kill him. Back then, the ancient celestial emperors relied on a special coffin to destroy that terrifying enemy. That coffin was extremely special. It was completely different from this indistinct coffin. Could it be that this was a series of forbidden items? Great changes also occurred in the immortal heavenly domain. The source of darkness completely erupted. Chilly winds howled, the heavens collapsed, and the earth cracked. The world fell into eternal darkness. This scene was too terrifying. The sleeping, peerless devil was awakened, releasing the cries of millions of gods and ghosts. The sealing force of the immortal world gate collapsed under the trembling. However, an endless rain of blood poured down. The bitter aura surged, causing the immortal world gate to tremble uncontrollably. The calamity was magnified, extremely terrifying. The great stars in the sky were all extinguished. The darkness seemed to rush to the end of the universe, crushing down on the river of time. The entire immortal heavenly domain was on the verge of exploding. Everyone was terrified. An irresistible force wanted to devour the immortal heavenly domain in an instant. One could well imagine how tyrannical the source of darkness was. The immortal gate blazed brilliantly, awakening in the darkness. Endless great Tao symbols were emitted, and they burned densely, forming a grand stone gate that shook the heavens. The figure entrenched within was even more terrifying. The sleeping, unmatched military marquis erupted, his pupils blazing with radiance. Behind him rose an enormous immortal phoenix. Its body was millions and millions of zhang in size, terrifying to the extreme. The Tao protector of King City was incomparably terrifying. He directly became one with the celestial world gate. He seemed to have turned into a great emperor, majestic and imposing as he resisted the power of darkness that swept over. Without a doubt, the darkness matter was blocked. The immortal gate continued to shine, and the figure inside became more and more terrifying. He blocked it. Countless people cheered, their expressions fanatical. The disaster of darkness was stopped. This news stirred up everyone's spirits. The source of the disaster was stopped, and the entire world was boiling with excitement. Kill! The Xian people's primogenitor let out a long roar. His ruined body burned fiercely, triggering the forbidden object. He rushed out of the Xian people's land and attacked the battlefield. At the same time, his heart was surging with emotions. What exactly was the thing that he had obtained so many years ago? To cause the darkness pool to go berserk, could this be what the Dark World was looking for? In prehistoric times, the Dark World invaded the burial lands for the same mysterious object. Unfortunately, the Dark World didn't get what they wanted. The era of the burial lands also came to an end. It was reduced to a wasteland, and a series of universes big and small declined along with it. Even the Xian people's primogenitor didn't know what this object was, but it was definitely important. Billions of years had passed, and the Dark World was still eyeing it covetously. What they were after was definitely a heaven-defying object. Boom! The vast world was crushed. A piece of an object rushed out of the celestial continent. It was full of mythical colors. Even the Cien people's primogenitor was almost killed by this object. This object was even the forbidden area where the Cien people's primogenitor obtained the celestial slaying sword. He then explored this forbidden area of the universe on a deeper level and found this extremely mysterious object. The Cien people's primogenitor used countless methods but still couldn't subdue this object. He couldn't even refine it. From then on, he sealed this object and suppressed it under the ancestral land of the Cien people. But he definitely didn't expect this object to have such a frightening origin. The scene that appeared in Su Yan's eyes made him feel a little absent-minded. He saw a blurry nine-colored sky coffin that spanned across the great cosmos and was heading towards this realm. Then, Su Yan realized that it wasn't the nine-colored heavenly coffin. It was just a nine-colored object. It was like a piece of an object that had fallen off from the nine-colored heavenly coffin. It was also like a fragment of the nine-colored heavenly coffin that had been destroyed. But this was a little unbelievable. Was this a treasure that the dark world was after? It had been destroyed long ago. It wasn't complete at all. Boom! The nine-colored object rushed over and was controlled by the remnant body of the Cien people's primogenitor. In an instant, its remnant body trembled and was about to be completely destroyed. This object seemed to be a forbidden object. It was difficult for humans to carry it, and even operating it was relatively difficult. Kill. The Cien people's primogenitor was completely crazy. Even if he died of exhaustion, he would still kill Su Yan. It was like a nine-colored sword body, steaming with terrifying radiance, tearing apart the entire universe. The moment it was hurled over, Su Yan's flesh shell rumbled, and the black and white mist in his body spun faster and faster. The faster it spun, the greater the changes. Gradually, the black and white mist turned into two large spheres. The black sphere and the white sphere were like two special suns, steaming with mist. They shook violently and were about to tear apart Su Yan's body and rush out. Su Yan roared like a crazy demon god. As he roared, the heavens and earth cracked, the universe exploded, and millions of thunder and lightning flashed. He was facing the danger of being destroyed in body and soul. The black and white mist wanted to destroy his body and rush into the mysterious nine-colored object. Su Yan really couldn't hold it back. What was the origin of this damn thing? It could still stir up trouble even now. Go to hell. The Cien people's primogenitor laughed sinisterly. The nine-colored object was already pressing down. He didn't believe that Su Yan could withstand it. He would most likely be blasted into ashes in a single blow. However, just as the nine-colored object was about to press down on Su Yan, he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the object. This object was very ancient and didn't seem very mysterious. It didn't have any Tao patterns or symbols on it. It looked like an ordinary nine-colored weapon fragment, but it wasn't small. However, the moment Su Yan grabbed it, he vaguely heard a low roar. It was like the cry of an immortal ancestor or the roar of a demon ancestor. It was too terrifying and echoed in the long river of time. There was an indescribable, forbidden power in it. What was this? Su Yan was even more shocked. The black and white spheres gradually quieted down. The white sphere loomed in his primordial spirit. The black sphere bobbed up and down in his flesh shell. Su Yan felt very uncomfortable. He would rather not have these two restless things in his body. It was really disgusting. Boom! Su Yan tried to refine the two mysterious spheres. Unexpectedly, the nine-colored object in his hand lit up. Suddenly, Su Yan felt that he had merged with the nine-colored object. For a moment, he became somewhat frightening. It was as if he had transformed into a terrifying immortal king, overflowing with nine-colored celestial radiance. The Cien people's primogenitor screamed miserably. He was shaken by the aura emitted by Su Yan and shattered. Before his death, he was filled with fear and despair. Why was it like this? Su Yan had mastered the nine-colored object. Why was it like this? Why? His body and soul were directly destroyed. Before his death, he emitted endless resentment that affected the heaven and earth. Why was it like this? He was too unwilling. Even if he knew the truth, he wouldn't be so unwilling. Why? The Xian people's primogenitor's eyes were about to split open. He was really furious. The immortal slaying sword was in Su Yan's hands. The nine-colored weapon fragment was also in Su Yan's hands. Why was it like this? The Xian people's primogenitor was filled with grief and indignation. He couldn't vent his anger. He coughed out blood continuously. He was about to go crazy. Wasn't this too much of bully? The two trump cards he was so proud of had both fallen into Su Yan's hands. Wasn't this too laughable? In a world overflowing with resentment, Su Yan wielded the nine-colored weapon fragment. This object was surging with mysterious nine-colored celestial radiance, uniformly covering his body. He became more and more shocked. The nine-colored weapon fragment seemed to be helping him refine the black and white mists. Boom! Soon, a majestic aura rippled out from Su Yan's body. It was vast and surging violently, affecting the undying heavenly domain. The boundless sky darkened. The world seemed to have entered an era of darkness. No light could be seen. The people of the world trembled. They didn't know what was going on. The source of the aura was also very difficult to trace. Some people felt that this was the power of the calamity of darkness, once again engulfing the undying heavenly domain. In short, all the saints in the sky were trembling. They felt as if the eye of heaven had opened, emitting the light of judgment, making them feel cold from head to toe. There were also people who felt as if they saw a majestic black sun, as if reflecting the reincarnation of life and death, grasping the lives of millions and millions of lives. This was very terrifying and outrageous. What kind of Tao technique was this? The next moment, heaven and earth shook violently. It was as if an invincible, immortal ancestor had broken free from his silhouette. The whole world was filled with divine light, and yang energy surged. A white sun filled the sky, as if illuminating the three realms, creating the origin of life. What is this? The people of the world trembled. This was a major event that was difficult to describe. They didn't know the reason behind it. The heaven and earth were affected by an extremely majestic power, flickering between light and darkness. It was also as if the primal chaos had exploded, dividing yin and yang, creating reincarnation. The momentum was extremely shocking. However, this effect didn't last for long. It gradually returned to silence, as if it had never appeared. The people of the world were in a daze. What exactly happened just now? Only Su Yan's heart was in turmoil. The black and white sphere dissolved, and his primordial spirit was resplendent. Unparalleled potential was released, and boundless yang energy accompanied by the chanting of the Sun Mother Sutra. It was as if it was expounding the Tao of the origin of all life. His flesh shell was also shining brilliantly, and all his physiques resonated, emitting boundless divine might. There was also unparalleled potential circulating in his flesh, and it was like millions and millions of tsunamis bombarding the three realms. It was very terrifying and inconceivable. This was the potential that belonged to him, and it was also like the potential that originated from the future. It didn't materialize, but it covered Su Yan's flesh and circulated in all directions. One day, it could be unlocked and used by him. Very soon, the unparalleled potential was completely dispersed, vanishing without a trace. Su Yan was silent. This was the power that originated from the future, and it had manifested in advance just now. There was a great treasure buried in his body. Was it because of the uniqueness of the heaven burial avatar, or was it because of the black and white fog? Perhaps from the beginning, the black and white fog belonged to him. This was the innate treasure in his body. Everyone's potential was limitless, and it depended on how one dug it out. Su Yan had seen the terrifying and outrageous potential of the future in advance, and what was in front of him was also a great path to the heavens. Daesong, without a low roar. As long as he stepped into the Daesong realm, he could unleash his potential. Moreover, Su Yan found that he was full of energy and his divine power was boundless. He was standing at the peak of the fourth heaven of the Sage Realm, almost stepping into the fifth heaven of the sage realm. The changes in his flesh weren't much, but the main thing was that his primordial spirit had become stronger. In an instant, his primordial spirit glowed, and his soul energy surged. The light that covered his flesh and blood caused Su Yan's combat power to soar wildly, and he was much more ferocious than before. This made him excited, and he roared toward the sky. The path of the strong had opened. In the coming years, he would become stronger at a terrifying speed. He had already blasted open the door to the sage realm. This was a brand new path, and he was looking forward to it. Boom! Su Yin soared into the sky, and the great Tao of heaven and earth resonated with him. A blazing figure shook the immortal heavenly domain, causing an uproar among thousands of sections. Su Yin had risen, and with a punch, he killed the ancestor of the mystic heaven sect, smashing him into pieces. The ancestor of the mystic heaven sect screamed, and he exploded. However, the ancestor of the Xian people was even more miserable. Su Yin had awakened, and the peerless divine power emitted by him directly exploded with a boom. Before he died, he roared as he was crushed to death. Like a bug that was crushed to death, he collapsed while still alive. The only thing left behind was a resentful aura that filled the sky. Su Yin roared, and his wild nature erupted, and his roar shook the starry sky. He threw the world-destroying halberd, and his killing intent overflowed into the sky, and it crossed over 100 great continents. Heavens is Grandpa Su so strong. The people trembled in fear, and the younger generation felt that this was especially unreal. The figure entrenched in the land of destruction was extremely majestic. He threw the pitch-black Fontion halberd, and it crossed over 100 great continents, pressing down on a great sect that had just been defeated. The experts of the sect lost control, roaring into the heavens. The world-extinguishing halberd pressed down with boundless weight, and the ancestral land collapsed in all directions. Countless great cracks appeared, and large amounts of experts of the sect were crushed. A bloody hole was formed in the ancestral court, and the nest was destroyed. Who dares to fight me? Su Yin faced the sky and roared, his battle aura surging, and his hair danced wildly. He was like an immortal sovereign who ruled the world. He punched out, and heaven and earth collapsed. The great Tao was shattered, and the fist imprint blasted to the limits of heaven and earth, pressing down on the underworld. No! The experts of the underworld bloodline cried out in despair. Their race's Daozu was terrified. The lord of the underworld had been killed by Su Yin, and now Su Yin was domineering under the heavens. His fist imprint overflowed into the heavens, pressing down on the underworld. His main body didn't even kill his way over. He just punched out, and the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. 10,000 ghosts cried out. This punch directly destroyed half of the sky of the underworld, and the endless, baleful In Chi was completely wiped out. The ancestral court of the underworld was also blasted through, and a huge crack appeared. Countless stars were extinguished within, and one could imagine how powerful this punch was. Su Yin was glorious, and his aura swallowed the world. He commanded the wind and clouds as he continuously punched out, attacking across great continents. The experts of the various great sects were dumbfounded. Was this still the Su Yin who had been weakened after fighting for so long? It was truly too terrifying. What kind of good thing did he swallow? Moreover, his battle prowess was even more ferocious and terrifying than before. In short, the myriad sects were shaken, and there were people who cheered for the god of war. Su Yin was truly invincible in the immortal heavenly domain, and in this universe, he was completely invincible. Chapter 1802. Su Yin had managed to intimidate 10,000 sects by himself. At this moment, he was powerful and invincible. He was at the peak of the fourth heaven of the Saint Realm, and his primordial spirit was so powerful that it was approaching the peak of the Saint Realm. In short, the universe operated, and strange phenomena appeared. Auspicious clouds bloomed, and a shocking Great Tao fluctuation flowed. The Great Yin, the Great Yang, the four symbols, the 8 trigrams, all things in the universe. His aura was too vast and terrifying. Every punch was majestic and peerless, and it caused the supreme sect to rumble. Even a mountain-protecting killing formation couldn't withstand it. Although the 3 Xian people's ancestors had been crippled on the Day of Reckoning, there were still some forces left. How could Su Yan be left out? He went on a killing spree. Even if his true body didn't move, just the resonance of the vast source of divine power in his body could completely suppress the distant great continents. This was simply a legendary battle strength, and the ancestral halls of the great sects were destroyed one after another. Slash! Su Yan roared and slashed out with his sword. A huge crack appeared in outer space. The scene was spectacular to the extreme, and it also revealed the power to slaughter all the immortals in the world, extending to the Strange Heaven sect. In fact, the Strange Heaven sect's ancestral ground's protective power was definitely the most powerful in the world. Endless killing formations gathered the momentum of heaven and earth and could resist the great calamity of heaven and earth. This was an extremely difficult bone to chew. Now, the Strange Heaven sect was thinking of moving away from the undying heavenly domain. Su Yan's killing was too timely and decisive. He took out the immortal slaying sword and slashed out. It was too terrifying. A huge golden sword condensed between heaven and earth, as if it was formed by the blood of 10,000 immortals. Killing light surged, destroying heaven and earth. It's broken. The experts of the Strange Heaven sect trembled. Their ancestral ground's foundation was activated to the extreme, but it still couldn't match the divine power of Su Yan's sword. Millions of formations were cut apart, and the huge golden sword scattered down. Endless sword chi slashed down. The scene of the destruction of the world caused everyone to despair. How could they match it? How could they escape? The range was too dense. The surviving Tao patriarchs of the Wondrous Heaven sect were terrified as they sensed the terrifying pressure sweeping over them. This was a tribulation they could not resist, nor could they block. The power of heaven and earth was split apart, and the entire Wondrous Heaven sect seemed to have turned into a land of death and destruction. Puff, puff! The great province was dyed in blood, and it continued to spread outwards. No one could tell just how many creatures were killed. This sword was going to completely tear apart the entire mysterious Heaven sect. The Wondrous Heaven sect is finished. The Xian people are finished. Su Xianren has destroyed half the sky of the underworld with a single punch. The 3 greatest orthodoxies are about to be destroyed. Everyone in the world went crazy. This battle prowess was too frightening. However, when they thought about how Su Yan had killed the 3 Daozu giants, his battle prowess was already unrivaled in the world. The terrifying sword Qi destroyed half of the sky of the Strange Heaven sect. How terrifying! Jin Tiangang felt his hair stand on end. 100 years ago, he and Su Yan had had a conflict, but now that he thought about it, his entire body was covered in cold sweat. If he hadn't exterminated his clan and continued to target Su Yan, his ending would have been the same as the Wondrous Heaven sect. Invincible. The Grand Holy Maiden sighed as she looked at Su Yan with her limpid eyes. His growth history was truly perverse. He had just stepped into the Daozu realm, but now he had an unrivaled battle prowess, slaughtering all the great sects with his sword. There were also a large number of experts who fled in panic. The Celestial Court would definitely not let them off. Back then, they had stabbed the Celestial Court in the back, and the grudge from 1,000,000 years ago had lasted until now. It would be strange if the Flame Emperor and the others could just let it go. This was a great purge, and the methods were too cruel. It was a complete purge. Cut the weeds and dig up the roots, kill. Bao Kai and the others roared. Borrowing the power of the Daozu weapons, they plowed through the courts and swept through the various great sections. Who cared about the dark calamity? Who cared about the immortal world? In short, no matter what happened, no matter what they would face in the future, they wanted to have a good fight and wipe out all the enemies of the immortal heaven domain. Boom! Gods and devils danced wildly and the bloody battle in the heavens. The effects of the calamity were getting more and more shocking. The entire world was filled with the stench of blood. Could this be considered the final madness before the calamity? The sword sect primogenitor and the others were very worried. The dark matter was still rampaging. Now that the gate of the immortal world had been suppressed by the dark matter, the dark world had no intention of stopping. Would the gate of the immortal world be broken through? No one could say for sure. The Tao protector of the King's City had a solemn expression on his face. What exactly happened that caused the dark world to pay such a heavy price? One must know that the dark world was too far away from here. Under the influence of the environment of the three worlds, they would definitely pay an unimaginable price to invade the mortal world. But from the looks of it, the dark world had no intention of stopping. Could it be that there were still some problems in the prehistoric war that hadn't been resolved? What treasure is that exactly? How did it end up in the hands of that little thing? The Sky Tyrant Emperor's expression was extremely gloomy. The Tao protector of the King's City didn't know that the reason why the dark world didn't go all out in their attack was most likely because of the mysterious nine-colored damaged weapon. This point was something that the Tao protector of the King's City wouldn't think of. The immortal martial king's expression was incomparably ugly. A damaged weapon shouldn't be something that the dark world wanted. Maybe there was a huge connection between the two. This undoubtedly proved that the item was still in the mortal world. He was truly enraged. Their race had the hope of getting infinitely close to the damaged weapon. It could be said that they already had it in their hands. But the ancestor of the Xian people didn't say anything before this. This was truly too hateful. We must definitely get our hands on that item. The immortal martial king's eyes flashed with a sinister light. Even if Su Yin came to the immortal world, he had many ways to kill him. The nine-colored damaged weapon was too important. Su Yin also didn't know the origin of this item. However, he felt that only by unleashing his unparalleled potential would he have the qualifications to unleash the full power of the nine-colored damaged weapon. Was this a fragment of the nine-colored heavenly coffin? In any case, its origin was too great. In the past, the Grand Elder said that the reason why the immortal world and the mortal world broke apart was because of a nine-colored heavenly coffin that fell into the mortal world. Of course, this matter was filled with mysteries, and it was impossible to completely confirm it. However, ever since he saw the original appearance of the nine-colored damaged weapon, Su Yin felt that the possibility was too high. In any case, this item was too important and must not fall into the hands of others. Although part of the immortal heavenly domain had fallen, it was still vast and boundless. Woo-woo. All the major realms trembled as blood-colored storms rolled one after another, surging and raging. The once prosperous orthodoxies were now mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Too many cultivators had died. It was impossible to count. With Su Yan's peerless combat strength, the tyrant fist broke through their ancestral court and forcefully opened their ancestral land. One could only imagine the cruel problems these great sects faced. One by one, they were massacred. One after another, large continents were drowned in blood. The whole world trembled. This was a total massacre. The Xian people's ancestors had already died in battle. This alliance could be said to have declined. It could no longer fight against the Celestial Court. One had to know that the prehistoric Big Brother and Dao Shui had yet to make a move. It was the younger generation that had erupted and swept across the major sects. Kill! The underworld branch's roar was like thunder. The boundless darkness exploded, and the yin qi in the sky evaporated. The heavenly sun elder charged in the defeated underworld branch's continents. His eyes were blood red, and his hair was disheveled. He was on the verge of exploding. Back then, the heavenly sun sect was directly annihilated by the underworld branch. He was the only one left. One could imagine how many living beings the heavenly sun elder had slaughtered when he went berserk. No one could match him. The wondrous heaven sect and the other factions were in a similar situation. Just like this, one by one, the major sects were wiped out from the immortal heavenly domain. The major sects were uprooted, and countless treasuries were taken away. Annihilation in one battle. This was the belief of everyone in the celestial court. Many people had gone crazy from the killing. Boom! Almost a day had passed. Su Yin felt a terrifying pressure. It was so strong that even he felt chills down his spine. I wonder who saved us. I will never forget this great kindness. Su Yin's cold eyes glowed. He saw the place where the immortal world gate was suppressing. The ancient immortal world gate was a little blurry. It was about to be completely swallowed by the dark matter. It could burst at any time. The Tao protector of the king's city, standing in the middle of it, was also a little blurry. Su Yin hated the reincarnation emperor family and the Xian people. However, the immortal world was the main force resisting the dark calamity. When he saw the figure burning his life force in the dark gate, he believed it. There were some factions in the immortal world that did not need to be questioned. The Tao protector of the king's city was already fighting with his life. It was like the figure of the immemorial immortal phoenix had merged with the immortal world gate. At this moment, in the ancient immortal world, a dull and terrifying bugle horn sounded. It shook the endless ancient worlds and spread to countless royal families. It also exploded in a series of huge battlefields. Once the bugle horn was blown, the myriad worlds resonated. The heaven and earth shone, sending out waves of energy that bombarded the various worlds. It swept 1/10 of the immortal world's territory. Roar! The sound became more and more deafening, more and more terrifying, and more shocking. It turned into roars, and huge heavenly dragons and immortal phoenixes. Look, the immortal heavenly domain was in an uproar. Another immortal world gate appeared. It was incomparably huge and terrifying. It was like an ancient and dazzling immortal king had awakened from his slumber, emitting endless fierce light. This was different from the previous immortal world gate. This immortal world gate was filled with endless blood. The scene of billions of immortals dying and the destruction of the myriad worlds was too terrifying and inconceivable. Moreover, a large number of troops rushed out from it, and their battle cries filled the sky. This was a group of terrifying gods and devils. Their roars shook the heavens, and their blood surged. Ferocious chi surrounded their bodies. They held all kinds of fierce weapons and rushed towards the immortal world gate. Phoenix King, the army of tens of thousands roared. Their voices were uniform, and it shook the heaven and earth. They were all the subordinates of the Tao Protector. They were extremely powerful, and each of them had outstanding military achievements. They had fought the elites of the Dark World on various battlefields. The Tao Protector of the King City was also the former Phoenix King. Immortal Phoenix Army. When a large banner rushed out, it enlarged and covered millions of miles. There was an immortal phoenix spreading its wings, indicating the appearance of this army. The great figures of the Xian people sighed. This was once one of the 10 great armies of the immortal world. Its military achievements were heaven-defying. At its peak, it had an army of millions. But after so many years, only 10,000 soldiers remained. It was clear how heavy the casualties were. This was a meritorious army, and their glory was unparalleled. Although they didn't have the might of their peak, when the Tao Protector of the King's City issued the order, his old subordinates were the first to rush out. They waved the banner and shouted, and killing intent surged. They were too brave and shocking. All of them were going to fight with their lives on the line. Reinforcements are here. Bao Kai roared. His blood was boiling as he rushed towards the immortal world gate to participate in the battle. The old leader and the others laughed. After slaughtering the enemy forces, there were no more worries. Now that they were participating in the battle against the Dark World, it was truly a joyous thing in life. Even Su Yin was infected. This was a group of hot-blooded men. They weren't afraid of death, and they emitted the determination to fight the Dark World. They didn't say a word. They rushed into the immortal world gate and immediately joined the battle. To them, wherever there was darkness, there would be their figures, and there would be their immortal phoenix war flag. Su Yan's blood was boiling. As the saint of Daozu in this world, Su Yin would definitely participate in the battle. Let's go too. The sword sect ancestor and the others laughed boldly. They couldn't let them look down on them. In reality, this was a calamity that belonged to this world. Even if their cultivation wasn't as good as others, they couldn't be weak. Chapter 1803. Su Yin and the others entered the battle with great determination. They wanted to fight to the death with the dark disaster, and they wanted to see how terrifying the creatures of the dark world were. However, as soon as they approached the celestial world gate, they were doused with cold water. The strong cultivators of the celestial phoenix army stopped them. Fighting against the dark world was very dangerous, and the death rate was very high. They needed special armor to prevent the dark matter from corroding their flesh and blood. Every soldier of the celestial phoenix army was draped in ancient and heavy armor that reeked of blood. Although most of the armor was a little damaged, it flowed with the holy light of protection that could reduce the influence of the dark matter. Armor was precious and limited. They didn't have any extra. If they didn't have armor to block out the dark matter and rushed in alone, they might not even see the enemy. Their flesh and blood would be corroded by the dark matter and turned into bones. Now, the protectors used the power of the celestial world gate to suppress the source of darkness, but there was still dark matter surging in the outer realm. They couldn't do it without armor. No matter. The important figure of the celestial world walked out and said calmly, "Our reinforcements will be here soon. We can give you some armor." This old fogey is from the Xian people. Bao-Cai's big fat face fell. He caught an aura similar to that of the celestial martial king, but he felt that this old monster was a little scary. He didn't know what level he was at. Did he want them to join the battle to persecute them? The eyes of the important figure of the Xian people turned cold, and he stared at Bao-Cai. Bao-Cai was suddenly alerted, and all the hairs on its body stood on end. It felt as if it was being stared at by an evil dragon and almost couldn't breathe. Raging waves rose up in its heart. Could have seen through its thoughts just now? Boom! Not much time had passed. The celestial world gate rumbled again, and dense symbols flashed. They were dazzling and blazing, and an astonishing power of crossing realms surged. Su Yin stared at the celestial world gate and saw a huge gate emerge from inside. Suddenly, a terrifying fluctuation surged out. It was even more shocking than the sea of stars exploding, and endless troops rushed out from it. The army of the Xian people. Su Yan's eyes turned slightly cold. The deity clan had sent a total of 100,000 soldiers. They were extremely powerful fighting soldiers, the best of the best. They were clad in shiny armor and wielded weapons. Almost all of them were charging forward on ancient beasts. There was no doubt that the Xian people's army and the Immortal Phoenix army were not on the same level. The Immortal Phoenix army was like a ragtag army that lacked resources. Many of their armors were damaged and could collapse at any moment. On the other hand, the army of the Xian people was also extremely powerful. Their armor was dazzling, and the ancient beasts they rode were also astonishingly powerful. After all, an entire army of 100,000 had descended to the mortal world. Their aura had swallowed the sea of stars, and they had shaken the entire universe. However, compared to the two large armies, the fighting spirit of the Immortal Phoenix army was even more ferocious. Every single soldier exuded an austere aura, and in their silence, they were like large volcanoes that were about to explode at the slightest touch. They could erupt with boundless flames of battle at any time and crush their enemies. Of course, it was not only the army of the Xian people. Not long after, the army of the Reincarnation Emperor family arrived. There were also 100,000 soldiers. In fact, the reason why the Xian people and the Reincarnation Emperor family had dispatched 100,000 soldiers to respond to the call of the protectors was to reduce the impact of this incident. Most importantly, they wanted to appease the anger of the protectors. This matter was not over yet. Who knew if the protectors of the royal city would seek revenge in the future? Following that, a series of soldiers and horses charged forward. The Bao-Cai was shocked. An army of 1,000,000 had descended to the mortal world. This was going to be a tough battle against the dark calamity. So powerful. The East Demon clenched his fists. 1,000,000 lions had descended to the mortal world. They were all shocked. Although they had seen the world, they were still stunned by the power of the celestial world at this moment. Only the Yin Emperor and the others remained calm. They recalled how prosperous and terrifying the army of the celestial court used to be. They left after the war 1,000,000 years ago. Since they did not return, the Yin Emperor might have gone to look for the ancient celestial emperors. Perhaps the army of billions was not in the three realms. That was an army of billions, a force that could wash the world with blood. Give them some armor? The leader of the Xian people's army frowned. A noble mark flashed between his eyebrows. It was reflected in the sky and the earth, and the words heroic martial marquis appeared. It had a terrifying aura. The heroic martial marquis' eyes were as sharp as knives. He scanned the Yin Emperor and the others. Finally, he fixed his gaze on Su Yin. His eyes were deep. No one knew what kind of thoughts were flashing through his mind. However, Su Yin sensed danger. Be careful. Su Yin transmitted a message to Fairy Zixia. It was better to be safe than sorry. Otherwise, the Xian people would make things difficult for them before they were killed by the Dark Calamity. Some Xian people experts complained. They did not have enough armor. When fighting against the Dark Calamity, the armor could be easily destroyed. These resources were relatively precious. They did not want to share them with others. Many Xian people experts did not know who Su Yin was. They thought he was a member of the Immortal Phoenix Army. Ever since the Heavenly Phoenix Marquis became the protector of the Imperial City, his strongest sons had died in battle. The Immortal Phoenix Army had also declined. Why would a ragtag army need armor? However, since the Xian people's big shot had spoken, the heroic martial marquis could only do as he was told. He took out some armor and gave it to Su Yin and the others. Su Yin put on a silver armor. This armor contained a very sacred power. It could protect him and increase his strength. It was really not an ordinary armor. The atmosphere inside the Celestial World Gate was tense. The torrent of darkness was getting more and more spectacular. The two Celestial World Gates worked together to suppress it and prevent it from endangering the undying celestial domain. At the same time, the experts gathered in the Celestial World Gate were solemn. Once the battle started, it would not end in a short time. Some people were also surprised. Was this the human world of the past? It was unbelievable that it had fallen to such a state. However, the battle was about to start. They did not have time to think about other things. Gradually, the torrent of darkness came as if it had crossed the river of time. Some space-time wormholes appeared in it. It's coming. The million-strong army at the Celestial World Gate was solemn. The Dark World was building a space-time tunnel. A large number of experts were about to cross over. The entire world was silent. They could hear their own heartbeats and the sound of their blood flowing. Where was the battlefield? Outside the world, it was vast and boundless. There was no end to it. No one knew how strong the Dark World attack would be. In short, the two worlds had fought for countless years. There were strict rules. Experts like the protectors of the Imperial City were not allowed to fight. If such existences fought, it would be a great blow to both the Dark World and the Celestial World. The losses would be great. The Celestial World has 10 great celestial sects. What materials are they made of? Su Yan's gaze scanned the interior of the Immortal Gate. It was like a huge fortress that could integrate hundreds of millions of troops. There were many buildings in it, and the murderous aura within the Immortal Gate was getting denser. It's coming. The generals of the Immortal Phoenix Army couldn't wait any longer. The old leader was here. Although the number of soldiers in the Immortal Phoenix Army was limited, they couldn't weaken the Protector's prestige. They couldn't disappoint the Protector. This was the first time the Protector had issued a battle order after being silent for tens of thousands of years. They all knew that the Protector's children had all died on the battlefield. Only his young granddaughter was still alive. No one hated the Dark World more than the Protector. Rumble, the distant world was no longer peaceful. An unusually cold aura spread out. It was so cold that it reached the marrow and froze the blood vessels of the human body. It was extremely cold and full of destructive aura. The vast land outside the world rumbled violently. Rolling dark matter covered the horizon. Dense shadows appeared. Some were blurry, some were ancient, and some were mysterious. They were too dense. They were almost uncountable. An extremely terrifying pressure closed in. It shook the celestial world gate. Kill! A knight roared. Together with his mount, he rushed into the sky like a terrifying bolt of lightning. He tore apart the land outside the world and charged. Kill! 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 Deafening battle cries erupted. A large number of soldiers rushed out of the celestial world gate and charged at the densely packed creatures in the dark land. It's starting. The creatures of the undying heavenly domain were stunned. It was too sudden and too direct. Just like that, the sudden battle made their scalps go numb. Everyone could sense how terrifying the dark tide was coming from the outer world and how it was crashing down on the immortal heavenly realm. Valkai and the others roared and charged as well. After crossing into the land outside the world, the armor they wore was effective. It stopped the dark matter from invading. However, there was still bone-chilling cold air seeping in. It wanted to destroy their bodies. Obviously, the armor couldn't block all the cold air. For the veterans who had been on the battlefield for a long time, they were covered in wounds. It was difficult to heal. Without a strong will to fight, it was hard to survive. Suyin was naturally not afraid. He had great resistance to the dark calamity. He could resist it even without the armor. Stay back. Don't be rash. An old cultivator in the Celestial Phoenix Army was in charge of taking care of Su Yin and the others. He treated them like new recruits. The old cultivator admired Bao Kai and the others' attitude in fighting the dark. However, it was their first time facing the dark world. They had to gain experience first. His expression became more serious. He told them about his experience. The death rate was too high when fighting against the creatures of the dark world. For inexperienced cultivators, they would be killed in a single blow. Sword Sect Ancestor and the others had heavy hearts. This old cultivator was at the peak of the Saint Realm. The Celestial Phoenix Army had 100,000 soldiers. Each soldier was very powerful. Most of them were experts in the immortal Dao domain. The leaders were even stronger. From this, it could be seen that the cultivation level of the celestial world was much higher than the undying heavenly domain. Kill! Roars exploded. One after another, they tore through the sky and shook the land outside the world. In the immortal Phoenix Army, a group of powerful commanders who were charging at the forefront roared. Their auras were terrifying to the extreme, and the scene was rather frightening. The land outside the realm had collapsed, and they launched their strongest charge at the densely packed shadows that were pressing forward. So these are the creatures of the dark world? East Devil's eyes widened. The densely packed creatures were charging over. Some had vicious auras like wolves and dogs. Some surged with bloody light. Some had 4 heads and 8 arms. There were also humanoid life forms with wings on their backs. There were also ancient beasts covered in dense scales. There were also skeletal creatures gushing with black chi. There were all kinds of strange creatures. Of course, there were many humanoid life forms like Su Yin and the others. This shocked them. They originally thought that the creatures of the dark world were disgusting, but they didn't expect that most of them were similar to them. Of course, there were also beauties from the dark world. They looked peerless and extraordinary. They encountered them. The aura here instantly became several dozen times colder. There was nothing to say. A bloody battle erupted. It was terrifying and shocking. In a single exchange, the experts of the 2 camps charged out and engaged in a bloody battle. Kill! The experts of the 2 camps roared. They erupted with the most terrifying power as soon as they attacked. It shook the land outside the world. It's open. Su Yan's blood was boiling. He wasn't nervous or fearful when facing the darkness. Instead, his battle blood was burning. It was howling on its own. Chapter 1804. The outer world was so vast that one couldn't even see the end of it. Kill! Shouts of killing shook the heavens and earth. Chilly winds howled as a mortal light surged. The leading experts of the 2 camps clashed fiercely as they charged. The heavens and earth exploded. The auras of the experts were too terrifying. Monstrous killing intent swept across the outer world, tearing apart the heavens and collapsing the universe. In the intense state, the entire world seemed to be bleeding. The terrifying and boundless battle caused even the outer realm to tremble. The outer world was divided into many large-scale battlefields controlled by the various armies. They were here to stop the powerful enemies of the dark world that wanted to suppress the undying heavenly domain. This battle was even more shocking than they had expected. The army that the dark world had sent out was beyond their expectations. Endless and densely packed figures charged along the dark passageway, forming a dark tide in the process, releasing the rumbling sound of a tsunami. Soon, the aura of these dark creatures became more and more shocking. The universe was like a piece of paper. Each of them had a terrifying body and boundless killing intent. It was a lineup that could destroy everything. The Devil Light wanted to devour the entire world. The Source of Destruction wanted to destroy everything. Kill! The great battle erupted. There was no way back. They could only charge forward and fight to the death. Large numbers of soldiers charged out of the battlefields one after another, fighting against the Dark World. Now, the 10,000 commanders of the immortal sects were all blocked by the powerful enemies of the Dark World. Their battle was too terrifying. The heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. Even the outer world produced a huge explosion of energy. It was like a brilliant rain of light, like a torrent of shooting stars. It was like the end of the world. The entire heavenly domain was dyed red. The living beings of the undying heavenly domain were stunned. How vast was this battlefield? Daesung experts were fighting with their lives. Terrifying existences were killing each other, destroying the heavens and earth along the way. Similarly, this battle erupted abruptly. There were no words. It was a bloody battle between two races. It was a cruel battle of life and death. The two armies clashed. A blood-colored storm howled as countless weapons clashed. Large numbers of corpses flew across the sky. Corpses were everywhere. This was just the beginning. There were corpses of the dark world and the immortal world. The casualties were too heavy. Roar! A great roar erupted, and it was as if millions and millions of immortal lightning descended. A heroic figure rose from within the immortal Phoenix army, mighty and domineering. He held a blood-colored heavenly blade, and behind him, an enormous immortal phoenix covered the sun. It spread its wings and split the heavens. Puff! A skeleton creature covered in rolling black light was severely wounded. A terrifying roar shook its body, and a blazing wing swept over, directly cutting off its head. In the end, its skeletal body exploded, triggering strange phenomena in heaven and earth. The entire sky was filled with a sea of bones, each broken bone able to crush the sea of stars. So scary. I think he's even scarier than the Sky Tyrant Lord and the Immortal Martial King. Bao Kai and the others discussed among themselves. They were extremely shocked. This expert who erupted with power was too terrifying. He was a great figure at the Emperor level, and his pupils were even sputtering with forbidden radiance. He was powerful to the extreme, yet he killed a leader of the dark world with a single move. This is our immortal Phoenix Army's Battle King. The old cultivator explained. He is the strongest commander of our immortal Phoenix Army, and is also one of the disciples of Lord Tao, Protector. Battle King. Su Yin was moved. This title was no small matter. It was definitely more honorable than the Sky Tyrant King and the Immortal Martial King. The old cultivator smiled proudly, and then his eyes dimmed. When the Immortal Phoenix Army was at its strongest, there were more than 10 Battle Kings. What kind of glory was that? Now, there was only one left. Moreover, for the various armies of the immortal world, there were very few experts who had the qualifications to be conferred the title of Battle King. It was similar to the title of Battle King. It did not belong to just one person. As long as one's battle achievements were outstanding, they had the qualifications to be called Battle King, the king of 100 battles, a noble among nobles. Look, it's alive again. Bao Kai was shocked. He saw that the exploded skeleton was burning fiercely and suddenly began to reconstruct, rippling with soul flames. It had clearly exploded just now. So how could it continue to reconstruct? There are some creatures in the dark world that are very difficult to deal with. We will encounter many more in the future. The old cultivator sneered. Just watch. Since you've been targeted by the Battle King, you definitely won't be able to survive. Sure enough, as soon as the skeleton creature's exploded body was reconstructed, the blood-colored heavenly blade streaked across the sky. It was extremely domineering and carried an abnormally terrifying might. In an instant, the skeleton creature was hacked to pieces again. Similarly, the Battle King roared loudly this time. A terrifying primordial spirit killing intent sputtered out from between his brows, evaporating his soul flames. Boom! Suddenly, overflowing black fog rolled and submerged a corner of the battlefield. The aura came too suddenly and was also rather strange. It erupted in an extremely ridiculous manner and tore apart the entire space. Not good. Darkness beast. The old cultivator's eyes were about to split open. The Battle King also roared loudly, but it was already too late to stop it. Ah! A commander of the Immortal Phoenix army was ambushed. His body collapsed, and the armor he wore was like paper. Roar! He roared in desperation. He knew that once he encountered this kind of problem, he would basically die. The darkness matter had already corroded his flesh. Before he died, his primordial spirit burned fiercely and exploded with a boom. Suyan's breathing became heavy. This was the destruction of both body and soul, taking the enemy down with him. It was too decisive and crazy. Even if he had to give up all hope of rescue, he would still seriously injure the powerful creature hibernating in the darkness. This was an enormous darkness creature. Its entire body was covered in black hair, and it stood tall in its human form. Its primordial spirit had suffered serious injuries, and even its blood-colored pupils were trembling. It never expected to encounter such a vicious person. Kill! The Battle King was furious. He brandished the blood-colored heavenly blade and wanted to hack the darkness beast alive. What made Suyan feel astonished was that this darkness beast's body was too strange. Its body immediately scattered, turning into a whirlwind of black hair that filled the sky. It made woo-woo sounds as it scattered between heaven and earth. The Battle King's blood-colored heavenly blade hacked apart, suddenly chopping off a large expanse of black hair. However, it still managed to escape. All of you, be careful. This is the most troublesome creature in the dark world, the darkness beast. The old cultivator felt as if a knife was twisting in his heart, but he quickly recovered. He was used to seeing life and death, already accustomed to it. He said coldly, "This race is equivalent to the Immortal Realms Emperor clan. This race's creatures are extremely troublesome to deal with. Moreover, this is just the beginning, and there are already traces of darkness beasts." The Tao Protector's expression was cold. He didn't believe that the dark world could continue to pay such a great price. One had to understand that the dark world was too far from here. Just maintaining the war passage alone required a huge amount of resources. If this continued for a long time, the dark world would be the ones to suffer losses. Were they scheming? The Tao Protector was also suspicious, and his expression became increasingly cold. The Xian people and the Reincarnation Emperor clan most likely knew, or else they wouldn't take the risk of activating the Immortal Realm Gate. Perhaps they didn't know either, but the Dark World might very well be training troops, preparing to launch a large-scale war against the Immortal Realm. However, the Tao Protector was more inclined to the first guess. Cold light shot out from the depths of his eyes. Is the great decisive battle about to begin? The Tao Protector's heart became a bit cold. Once that kind of war broke out, it would truly be too bitter. Who knew how many experts would fall? In prehistoric times, the three realms coexisted. Even if the human realm and immortal realm joined forces, they could barely fight the dark world to a draw. Billions of years ago, the human realm was destroyed, and the immortal realm situation became more and more dangerous. The dark world had always wanted to control the three realms and spread the dark matter throughout the three realms. The Tao Protector knew that the legendary figure appeared millions of years ago. It was truly terrifying and ridiculous. He had attacked the Dark World and severely injured it. Ever since that taboo history ended, the Immortal Realm and the Dark World had never had a large-scale war. This was enough to show that the Dark World had suffered great losses back then. The legendary figure had already disappeared. Perhaps he had died, perhaps he didn't exist, or perhaps he was trapped in some indescribable land outside of the three realms. However, millions of years had passed, and the heavily injured Dark World had most likely recovered. Moreover, the Great War between the immortals and demons was about to start again. Perhaps when the Great War ended, the Dark World would erupt. The Tao Protector was very worried. If this war continued for too long, the Dark World might really be determined to invade the Immortal Realm. When that time came, 2 out of the 3 realms would be controlled by the Dark World, and it would be the most difficult time for the Immortal Realm. It would be very dangerous to be attacked from both sides. Hence, no matter what, this realm couldn't be lost. It had to be defended. Roar! All of a sudden, a corner of the battlefield trembled and was about to collapse. Oh no, it's the black blood beasts. Fearful cries came from afar. The experts of the various armies trembled as they looked over. They saw huge, ancient beasts charging toward the battlefield one after another. The bloodlight was so vast that it was as if the sea of the universe was burning. The Baokai was shocked. What kind of monsters were these? Heavenly beasts were big enough, but they were like ants in front of the black blood beasts now. Every black blood beast was too frightening. Their eyes were bigger than the sun, and their bodies were more majestic than the sea of stars. The vitality they exuded was overwhelming. Roar! A black blood beast roared and swallowed several experts of the Immortal Phoenix army. It was too brutal. The other black blood beasts also charged over and attacked the Immortal Phoenix army. Every black blood beast exuded the vitality of the sea of the universe, and also steamed dark matter that filled the sky. It was a terrifying blow to the Immortal Phoenix army. They were determined to tear the entire Immortal Phoenix army apart in one go. We're in big trouble. The Dark World is fighting speed with speed. They're going to occupy a battlefield. The old cultivator's expression changed. These monsters were rare even in the Dark World. They were the strongest weapons of war. The appearance of the dark beasts and black blood beasts at the beginning of the battle made him extremely uneasy. Similarly, the reason why they chose the Immortal Phoenix army was because they had fewer people. The main reason was that this army had once dealt a heavy blow to the Dark World's army. This was a meritorious army in the past. The Dark World wanted to completely destroy the Immortal Phoenix army. Should we go and help? There are 9 black blood beasts. The Immortal Phoenix army can't hold them off. An expert in the Xian people's army asked. After all, they were the army deployed by the Emperor family. Logically, they should be the main force on the battlefield and should maintain the situation of the entire battlefield. However, just as he spoke, he was immediately warned by King Yingwu's cold gaze. He knew some inside information and wouldn't help in any way. 9 black blood beasts jumped out. Looks like the Dark World is going to fight speed with speed and take down a battlefield quickly. Let's see how the Immortal Phoenix army will explain themselves if they lose the battlefield. There's also that little thing. He killed Xinyu. He deserves to die even more. King Yingwu snorted coldly in his heart. Even King Yingwu was sent to the number 1 battlefield. As the protector of the royal city, he really had a lot of prestige. Did he really think that he could order the Emperor family around just because he had the Emperor's token? Kill! All the soldiers of the Immortal Phoenix army roared. The bloody battle continued. In the distance, some experts of the army came to help, but they were attacked by the Dark World. They wanted to take down a battlefield quickly. A large number of soldiers screamed. The Black Blood Beast's brute force was ridiculous. Although their movements were clumsy, even if they raised their claws, it was as if a blood-colored sea of stars came crashing down. Their strength was too barbaric and violent. They immediately smashed a large number of soldiers to death. There were also experts who charged forward and used their battle spears to pierce through the Black Blood Beast's body. However, this creature's vitality was too strong. It didn't take it seriously at all. With a roar, it killed the expert wielding the battle spear on the spot. The world was bleeding. The immortal Phoenix army had encountered a strong enemy. A group of experts roared and wanted to help, but they were also entangled by the creatures of the dark world. This was a 9-headed black blood beast. It was rare to encounter 1 or 2 on a normal battlefield. However, they encountered 9 at once. Some experts of the immortal Phoenix army, who had experienced hundreds of battles, lost their composure. Only the king of the battlefield could suppress them. Kill, kill, kill! All the soldiers of the immortal Phoenix army roared angrily. They burned their strongest lifeblood and exploded with 120% of their strength to stop the crazy attacks of the dark world. All the soldiers were crazy. They burned their life blood essence to fight. Each of them looked ferocious. They were like demons that had crawled out of hell. "What are you doing? Come back quickly." The old cultivator's expression changed drastically when he saw Su Yin charging out. "Hee, your courage is commendable." King Yingwu had been paying attention. He smiled coldly. Su Yin was really looking for death. These were black blood beasts. They were ridiculously strong and could kill all saints. They could also kill a large group of saints. However, Su Yin was charging alone. Wasn't he looking for death? And a black-blooded beast released a great roar. Its enormous and terrifying figure filled the sea of stars. Saints were like little ants at its side, many immortal Dao realm cultivators breaking apart, unable to withstand its terrifying vicious might. When it saw Su Yin charging over, it smiled coldly. Although Su Yin couldn't understand its words, he could see its contempt and disdain. Su Yin flew to the top of the sky and roared, "Come and die." And the black blood beast raised its claws and tore the sky apart. It was extremely terrifying and came crashing down. Boom! Su Yin brandished his fist and punched. Although his fist was insignificant compared to the black blood beast's claws, the surging power in Su Yan's body was 10,000 times more ferocious. Boom! The blazing fist imprint and the black claw collided, creating countless large cracks in the air. At the same time, Su Yan's body trembled violently and was about to explode. However, this also stimulated Su Yan's body and ignited it. The light of the myriad physiques was released, and endless power was released. It was as if a terrifying demon lord was erupting. "Kill!" Su Yan roared and activated the universe scripture. He unleashed his strongest combat power. Boom! The sky cracked and the stars trembled. Shocking Tao rose in Su Yan's body. A magnificent universe appeared behind the fluctuations. When it was activated, the vast land outside the realm resonated with it. Su Yan's black hair danced wildly. His eyes were like lightning. His body and the universe behind him merged into one. His entire person became infinitely terrifying, shocking the land outside the realm. "Ah!" the black blood beast screamed. This tiny ant released an infinite amount of power and forcibly imprisoned its entire body. No matter how it struggled or resisted, it was useless. Su Yan's arms were like the hands of the galaxy. He grabbed its claws and shook his arms, tearing its entire body apart. His aura was too ferocious. He turned into an indomitable demon god and tore the black blood beast apart. Chapter 1805. The bloody light was like an ocean, surging violently. Su Yin tore the black-blooded beast apart and roared at the sky. His battle blood surged, and the aura gushing out of his pores tore through the void. He tore it apart. The old cultivator's eyes trembled in disbelief. His heart was in turmoil as he saw a young battle king tear apart a black-blooded beast. He was bathed in blood. What kind of battle power was this? It was too crazy. He used all his strength to tear apart a black-blooded beast. "Good job!" The sword sect ancestor and the others shouted in shock. They were looked down upon and protected like new recruits. They felt a little indignant, but they also knew that the old cultivator was thinking about their safety. However, they didn't want to hide in the back and watch the Deity Phoenix army soldiers sacrifice their lives to stop the black-blooded beasts. They also wanted to do their part and fight the creatures of the dark world. Good, good, Good. Some of the soldiers roared as their eyes widened. That was a black blood beast. Its brute force was extraordinary, and only a young battle king could fight it head-on. However, the current Su Yin had torn the black blood beast apart. The experts from the distant army were also stunned. What kind of monster was this? Wasn't his physical strength too abnormal? He could even tear a black-blooded beast apart. Kill, Su Yin roared. Lightning flashed in his eyes, and his hair danced in the wind. He went berserk and hammered the black-blooded beast's torn bodies with punch after punch. He wanted to completely destroy them to prevent them from reviving. Some soldiers warned that black-blooded beasts would die once they were heavily injured, let alone have their bodies torn apart. This race had an innate advantage, but it also had its disadvantages. When encountering black-blooded beasts on the battlefield, they would think of ways to trap them and slowly torture them to death. However, it was rare to see someone as valiant as Su Yin because he had just killed one black-blooded beast and turned around to attack a second one. Roar! The black-blooded beast roared furiously. It was well aware of how terrifying Su Yin was, and it instantly erupted with its most powerful battle prowess. The chi and blood in its body began to circulate, and it was truly as if the sea of the universe had been overturned. It was incomparably vast and majestic as it pressed down on Su Yin. Su Yin summoned the world-annihilating halberd and let out a thunderous roar. Using his strongest physique and the power of the world-annihilating halberd, he destroyed the heaven and earth and shattered the blood-chi light that filled the sky. Baocai's eyes widened. Su Yin's roar was too abnormal. It looked like he was using all his strength. It was obvious that this black-blooded beast was not to be trifled with. In any case, his performance was simply too valiant. He pushed his way through, and the energy around his body whistled. From afar, it looked like millions of mountains had exploded. The world-extinguishing halberd in his hand was extremely heavy. With a boom, he destroyed the second black blood beast. Kill, brave, and invincible. Kill, brave, and invincible. The soldiers of the immortal Phoenix army roared excitedly. This young war monarch was strong and prosperous. He stood in his golden age and destroyed one black-blooded beast after another. In any case, this battlefield was filled with bloodlight like a waterfall. It surged and rained down, drowning the world. Change formation. There were also junior commanders who shouted. Su Yin had killed 3 black-blooded beasts in succession, causing the other 6 to panic. They quickly gathered together, wanting to join forces to deal with Su Yin. Originally, the immortal Phoenix army had formed a small team of 10 people. Now, their formation had changed, and they formed a small team of 100 people. They released enough power to block one black-blooded beast after another, giving Su Yin time to kill them all. This is bad. The old cultivator's expression was ugly. His heart ached terribly. What's wrong? Baocai was just about to rush over when he suddenly frowned. They had joined forces with the Sword Sect ancestor and formed a 100-man team to participate in the battle. The old cultivator slapped his thigh and quickly threw out an ancient mirror towards Su Yin. This is the War Merit Mirror. Killing a creature of the dark world is a merit. The old cultivator was vexed. The merit of killing one black-blooded beast is too high. We killed 3 in a row and didn't record it. This loss is too great. Baocai's eyes widened. It turned out that this old man didn't think they could kill the enemy, so he didn't give them the War Merit Mirror. The War Merit Mirror recorded the scene of killing the experts of the Dark World. It recorded the merits. The greatest effect of this thing was that it would be of great use when one was conferred the title of king. If one's merits were great, they would be conferred the title of War Monarch directly. Of course, there were too many people to kill. Every war monarch had to fight on the battlefield for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years to accumulate enough merit. The premise was that they could survive. However, if Su Yin continued killing like this, not to mention tens of thousands of years, a few years would be enough. How can he be so strong? Didn't he just enter the Saint Realm? King Heroic Marshall's expression was ugly. Could it be that the 1,500 kilograms of immortal source that he won caused his cultivation to skyrocket in such a short time? No matter what, Su Yin killed 5 black-blooded beasts in a row, which caused a huge commotion. Now, he intended to kill the 6th, but he was obstructed by a skeleton that was covered in flames. It was a peak Saint Realm expert, and the strength of its body was extremely terrifying. Be careful, a soldier warned. This skeleton was extremely difficult to deal with. If one was not careful, one's body would be severely injured. Damn it, you're too ugly. Scram. Who knew that Su Yin would roar and instantly use the Myriad World Fist? The fist seal was extremely huge. With a boom, it suppressed the skeleton's fist. The soldiers around were stunned. What kind of monster was this? Where did it come from? If they knew that Su Yin had killed a prodigy from the Immortal Cave, they would be even more shocked. In short, Su Yin's fist was too terrifying. It instantly destroyed the skeleton. He didn't even have a chance to revive, because his primordial spirit had evaporated. The skeleton screamed as its primordial spirit was destroyed. It didn't even have the chance to attack, and was directly destroyed. It was too miserable. The scene was shocking. The various generals of the Immortal Phoenix army shouted, "Invincible, invincible!" The hot-blooded men of the Immortal Phoenix army shouted. Su Yan's strength had gained their recognition. He alone was enough to fight against thousands of soldiers. He swept through the battlefield and killed the black-blooded beasts one after another. This also caused the Dark World's creatures to be furious. Some of the emperors who were fighting with the commanders had cold expressions. The immortal world was very protective of prodigies. They didn't expect to encounter one here. They had to eliminate him. Only then would the immortal world feel the pain. The battle became more and more intense. The commanders fought with their lives, and the soldiers charged. The Dark World had a devil, and the immortal world had an immortal. This was a complete mess of immortals and devils. The world was in chaos, and the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Kill! In the outer world, the battle cries were like the sea. The entire battlefield was dyed red with blood. The undying heavenly domain was overflowing with bloody light. The endless calamity and war were getting more and more terrifying. The battlefield also started to expand. The various armies were guarding all sides, fighting against the troops from the Dark World. Heroic Martial King couldn't continue to pay attention to Su Yin. The various armies were being attacked by lightning. The battlefield was also getting bigger and bigger. Every battlefield was surging with killing light. The specific scene could no longer be seen. Kill. Be crowned king in one battle. Dark World's dogs, hand over your lives. Bao Kai and the others shouted. In a super powerful training ground, they fought against the dark creatures. In a war between races, there were no grudges. Once they met, it was destined to be a life and death battle. Originally, the Dark World wanted to open a gap through the Immortal Phoenix army. In the end, they suffered heavy losses. The Sword Sect Primogenitor and the others weren't made of paper. Almost 100 saints came from the undying heavenly domain. Together with the old leader and the others, they formed a team and swept through the battlefield. However, the enemies were really endless. They couldn't be counted. Only God knew when it would end. Kill. Only kill. Everyone's eyes were filled with madness. There was no other emotion in their eyes that could affect them. Then let's kill. Su Yin fought for 10 days and 10 nights. He didn't sleep or rest. He didn't know what weakness was. The number of creatures from the Dark World under his feet was uncountable. It was unknown how many battle merits he had accumulated. He killed until the sky turned dark. Gods cried and ghosts cried. He had already attracted the attention of many big shots from the Dark World. They wouldn't allow an extremely terrifying invincible of the same generation to sweep through the battlefield. Their losses would be especially frightening. Call people, kill him. The experts from the Dark World's camp had cold expressions. They fixed their eyes on Su Yin. They had to kill him. Su Yin had already killed many experts from their side. If they let him continue, he would be crowned as a war king. The Immortal Phoenix Army's commander told Su Yin to be careful in case he was attacked by the geniuses from the Dark World. Su Yin wasn't afraid at all. No matter how strong they were, as long as they dared to stand in front of him, he would kill them all. Time flew by. Another half a month had passed. This was also a difficult period. It was too difficult. They fought bloody battles every day, and there wasn't any time to rest. The sovereign sect's founder and the others were exhausted. It was very difficult for them to continue fighting. An expert from the Immortal Phoenix Army sent over a batch of resources. He took out 250 kilograms of immortal sources for them to recover. The Sword Sect's founder and the others were envious. They knew that Su Yin had won 350 kilograms of immortal sources. These things were definitely very valuable. But you all, the old leader was in a difficult position. Many of the Immortal Phoenix Army's soldiers were also exhausted. However, they rarely used immortal sources to recover. 250 kilograms wasn't a small amount. Don't worry, an elder with a weak aura said with a smile. It's common for resources to be lacking on the battlefield. However, the Guardian is standing in the Immortal Gate, so there will definitely be a batch of resources sent over. Use it boldly. Many experts from the Immortal Phoenix Army laughed. If it was in the past, they wouldn't dare to take out 250 kilograms of immortal sources. These were the reserve resources of the Immortal Phoenix Army. They wouldn't dare to use them unless it was an emergency. However, since the Guardian was standing at the rear, the resources wouldn't be lacking. They also didn't have to worry about being intercepted by other armies. This was their confidence. With the Guardian standing at the rear, they could charge forward with all their might. The old cultivator distributed the immortal sources to them. Although 250 kilograms wasn't a small amount, each person in their 100-man team could only get a few kilograms. It was still very limited. However, these were immortal sources after all. Every kilogram was very difficult to obtain. Baokai stared helplessly. It couldn't use these things. They couldn't withstand the cleansing of saint power. The old cultivator didn't treat them unfairly. He gave some to Fairy Zixia and the others. He felt that they were about to step into the saint realm. They would definitely be brave and invincible generals in the future. Eastern Demon Do smiled honestly and didn't stand on ceremony. He sighed in his heart. Although there were some races in the immortal world that they hated, the Immortal Phoenix Army and the experts of the other armies were all heroes. Of course, no one would have thought that this battle would continue for year after year. Chapter 1806. The living beings in the undying heavenly domain were already numb. 6 years had passed, and the war was still not over. How many experts had died? More than 10 Daozu had died in the war, and the biggest shock was the death of the undying race's primogenitor. This primogenitor wasn't any weaker than the king of hell. He stood at the peak of the sage realm, and yet he had died in the outer world. How much danger had he encountered? Even the invincible Su Yin was in the middle of a bloody battle, but he couldn't save them in time. This made the living beings in the undying heavenly domain realize the cruelty of war. Even the immortal world couldn't sweep everything away. In these 3 years, Su Yin had killed too many enemies. Some of the so-called Dark World geniuses were killed by Su Yin. The more he killed, the stronger the Dark World's geniuses that challenged him. Moreover, it had been 6 years. One could imagine how many Dark World geniuses and overlords Su Yin had killed. At the same time, the Immortal Phoenix Army would often encounter powerful attacks from the enemy. Although the Dark World's invasion ended in failure, the Immortal Phoenix Army's casualties were also heavy. If it wasn't for the fact that the Immortal Phoenix Army's veterans had rushed over to participate in the war, the casualties would have been close to half. How long will this war last? In the bloody battlefield, Su Yin's expression was cold. His body was covered in blood. After 6 years of bloody battles, he could erupt with terrifying battle prowess at any time and kill all his enemies. If he could settle an enemy with a single punch, he wouldn't use a second punch. He would always maintain his peak battle prowess to deal with the attacks from the Dark World geniuses. At the same time, Su Yin's heart was heavy. How long would this war last? 6 years, he had been struggling on the edge of death, enduring the attacks of powerful enemies. He had been on the verge of death many times, but he climbed back up again and again. Su Yin had broken through and stepped into the fifth heavenly layer of the Saint Realm. After 6 years of bloody battles, it would be strange if he didn't break through. In fact, he was closing in on the sixth heavenly layer. In short, he was standing at the fifth heavenly layer of the Saint Realm consummate. Ever since Su Yin stepped into the Saint Realm, the speed of his breakthroughs was too fast. After 6 years of bloody battles, he had stabilized his cultivation and laid down a sturdy foundation. When will the war end? No one could answer him. The worst part was that this place had become the 11th battlefield. At present, there were 10 major battlefields in the immortal world. If the 11th battlefield world was formed here, it was very likely that this war would not end for a very long time. Cruel, too cruel. At this moment, Su Yin finally understood just how cruel the battlefield between the two worlds was. This was a war between two races. You die, I talk. There were no emotions to speak of. There were countless experts in the dark world and countless races. They could continuously launch attacks. In short, this was a war of attrition. Kill. It was a bloody battle that was too horrible to look at. Corpses were strewn across millions and millions of li. It was easy to imagine just how terrifying those people were. Even news of a war king's death had spread. The celestial world had constantly sent large numbers of troops to reinforce this place. The Tao protector of the royal city had personally issued a battle order, which was very influential. Everyone speculated that this place might become the 11th battlefield, which had a great impact on the situation of the entire celestial world. Su Yin, I feel like I'm about to break through. East Demon was preparing to withdraw from the battlefield again. 2 years ago, they left with Bao Kai and returned to recuperate for a period of time. Of course, the most important thing was that they received guidance from the mysterious skeleton. They also went to explore the strongest training ground and reaped great rewards. At the same time, they brought a group of powerful immortal Tao realm experts from the celestial court to participate in the battle against the experts of the dark world. In these few years, they had all changed greatly. It was worth mentioning that East Demon was the first to achieve divine transcendence. This made Su Yin extremely surprised. At first, he thought it would be Fairy Zixia or Long Day Song. He did not expect East Demon to be the first to achieve divine transcendence. Once the Infinity Sutra was activated, the light of the ancient emperor rose behind him. So fast. We have to hurry. Bao Kai grinned. After years of bloody battles, its growth was also very fast. It was also beginning to attempt divine transcendence. In fact, Bao Kai and the others could break through to the Sage Realm at any time, but they had been suppressing it. They also wanted to achieve divine transcendence, like Su Yin. After all, this was the standard to measure the strength of the immortal world's geniuses. They had to achieve it. Once they were all golden immortals and had great hopes of breaking through. They had also been nourished by the Tier 9 Life Essence Evolution Elixir and had a certain chance of success. For once, Bao Kai was reliable. It opened its mouth and spat out 40 kilograms of immortal source to East Demon. It hoped that he could be like Su Yin and break through several minor realms in succession, reducing the pressure on Su Yin. Fairy Zixia and the others also took out immortal source. Just like that, they had gathered a total of 400 kilograms of immortal source. East Demon did not stand on ceremony with them. These years, they had received a lot of immortal source. When he became a sage, he would accumulate a batch of immortal source and return it to them. Becoming a sage immortal source was very important. It could lay the foundation of a strong sage body and allow one to go further in the future. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. From the beginning of this battlefield until now, a full 10 years had passed. Fairy Zixia had returned. She was going to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time and start a breakthrough. Go! Su Yin nodded and let her also go to the strongest trial ground. Bao Cai's return from the trial ground had forced out its potential. However, it had almost died inside. It had succeeded in transcending mortality and entering sainthood. It had to be said that the strongest trial ground's 7th stage could really force out the limit of the immortal Tao realm's potential. Even if the seventh stage was passed, there would be astonishing benefits. It was a reward left behind by the imperial court era. Long Daesong had also transcended mortality and entered sainthood. However, its accumulation was too great. Currently, they did not have enough immortal source. Just in case, Su Yin let Long Daesong return immediately. He felt that Long Daesong's condition was not right. Sometimes it would be drowsy, as if it was going to undergo a super powerful awakening. He did not know how many resources it would consume. Thus, Su Yin let Daesong return. Another big one. Its aura is more dangerous. It's a tough bone to chew. Baokai roared. Its panda battle physique flowed with golden light. As a second firmament saint, it was extremely powerful. Its chest exploded with the roar of the ancestral dragon. It was exceptionally powerful and valiant. A single charge could create terrifying destructive power. For 10 consecutive years, Su Yin had killed countless geniuses from the Dark World. His cultivation had stepped into the sixth firmament saint realm. Ever since Baokai and East Demon broke through and stood at the saint realm, the three young saints joined forces and swept through the battlefield, killing the Dark World's army. As for the Dark World coming to challenge Su Yin, he was already used to it. East Demon attacked and charged forward. Once it erupted, boundless aura surged. A blurry and huge figure appeared, as if it was crossing the past, present, and future. Kill! East Demon roared. Its battle prowess was superb. With boundless power, it fought for thousands of rounds and killed the Dark World's geniuses again. The experts of the Immortal Phoenix army clapped and cheered. They didn't expect the weakened human world to be able to produce such talents. In the future, they would be extraordinary. Roar! At the end of the vast darkness, earth-shaking roars could be heard. The War King sneered. These years, the Dark World had sent too many geniuses to kill Su Yin and the others. In the end, they suffered a great loss this time. Su Yin didn't even make a move, and East Demon directly killed them. Some of the important figures in the Dark World were furious and spoke in a heavy ancient language. If they didn't get rid of Su Yin, this wasn't the style of their world. Go and invite people. If we can't get rid of him, it will be a disgrace to our Dark World. An expert in the darkness roared. Invite the strongest geniuses of our world and kill him. He must be killed. We have to be careful. The great battle of immortals and demons is about to begin. The geniuses of our world's supreme races are all tempering themselves and furthering their studies. Don't invite them easily. The great battle of immortals and demons is the main event. A creature in the darkness replied coldly. Those geniuses were too terrifying. They were all preparing for the great battle of immortals and demons. However, Su Yin was also considered a peerless genius of the celestial world by them. Only by inviting the important young giants of the Dark World would they be able to kill Su Yin. Thus, Su Yan's weight in the eyes of the Dark World was completely different. They treated him as the strongest seed. This won't do. We have to kill him. This child has fought bloody battles for 10 years. The more he fights, the braver he becomes. If this continues, the celestial world will most likely give birth to a martial emperor seed. Some experts of the Dark World didn't see it this way. They felt that Su Yin was using the Dark World to temper himself. He was completely different every year. His progress was too frightening. Although Su Yin wasn't one of the geniuses of the celestial world that the Dark World paid attention to, they could clearly see Su Yan's potential. He had to be killed. The creatures of the Dark World had solemn expressions. If he really had this kind of potential, he had to be killed. In the endless years of the celestial world, the number of martial emperor seeds that were born could be counted on one hand. Lord Tao Protector has left. The old cultivator said worriedly, Lord's losses are too great. He has guarded the celestial world gate for 10 years in a row. Leaving under such circumstances, it seems like his losses are great. Su Yin could also sense that the aura of a giant was missing from the celestial world gate. He frowned. He really didn't know how long the war would last. 10 years of killing. He wanted to vomit whenever he saw the creatures of darkness. Su Yin suddenly became silent. What should he do next? He felt that he should find time to go back and talk to the mysterious skeleton about the future. All these years, he had been suppressing his own breakthrough and tempering himself on the battlefield. Naturally, his growth was great. He had accumulated a lot of experience and tempered himself to be invincible. He often asked the experts of the immortal Phoenix Army for guidance. These nobles didn't hide anything and taught him everything. They were a great help to Su Yan. In the next few months, the attacks of the Dark World seemed to have calmed down. Could it be that the war was about to end? After all, after 10 years of bloody war, the armies of the celestial world were countless. It could be seen that they were resisting the will of the Dark World. After such a long time, it was still the Dark World that was at a disadvantage. Of course, the most important thing was that the Tao Protector of the Royal City had personally issued the order to summon. His rallying power was too great. At least 10 million soldiers of the celestial world were mobilized to participate in the war. I'm so tired. When will this war end? Are the soldiers of the Dark World endless? There are 10 major battlefields in the celestial world. If this really becomes the 11th battlefield, I don't know how long it will take. The Baokai panted. Its entire body reeked of blood. Its body was covered in wounds, and its bones could be seen. Su Yan sat on its back to recuperate. He had rushed out of the battlefield and killed an important prodigy of the Dark World for 1,000,000 miles. He had also exhausted himself. However, when he killed this important prodigy, he learned something. The Dark World might very well send the most terrifying people to deal with him. Su Yan's expression was cold. He wasn't afraid. Any battle. It's been 10 years. It's time to go back. Su Yan wanted to leave. His growth rate was gradually decreasing. He had to accept more cruel training. He thought of the 8th stage of the strongest trial ground. It was time to go and explore. Those who could survive 10 years on the battlefield would basically return to recuperate. The Baokai shivered from time to time. Although it had armor protecting its body, there was still energy rolling in its body. There was a black substance that seeped into its flesh. It was painful and unbearable. "Give me a demonic transformation pill," the Baokai shouted. Su Yan smiled bitterly. He didn't have any either. He wasn't afraid of being corroded by the dark matter. The demonic transformation pill was a divine pill that specialized in neutralizing dark matter. It was the most important strategic resource in the celestial world. "Brat, did you secretly eat it?" The Baokai returned with a dark face and a body covered in blood. "Only you are afraid of pain. You eat one every 10 days. Don't you know how many demonic transformation pills there are? The soldiers of the immortal Phoenix Army are only willing to eat one every 3 months. Su Yan glared at it. Some old soldiers are only willing to eat one every 6 months, just to leave it for the younger soldiers. Su Yan felt sad. There were too many old soldiers in the immortal Phoenix Army who had already been invaded by the demonic transformation pill. They had to endure great suffering every day. To these old soldiers, the demonic transformation pill was very weak. They were unwilling to eat it and wanted to leave it for the younger soldiers so that they would suffer less. "It's not that I killed many enemies. It's not the same," the Baokai complained. "Stop yelling," he said. "Hurry up, run forward. The next batch of resources should be here soon. Why don't you come down and carry me?" "Brat, don't talk nonsense. Be careful of being struck by lightning," the Baokai shouted and quickly returned to the camp. Along the way, it said that it wanted to eat the demonic transformation pill. Its entire body was cold and shivering. Su Yan's expression was cold. He sat cross-legged on the Baotsai's back. His body quickly evaporated with vigorous blood essence. Some of his deteriorating body recovered towards its peak. The Baotsai's speed was very fast. It knew that it couldn't stay in this area for long. The tragic aura spread out in the outer world. Corpses were everywhere, and the smell of blood was especially pungent. There were too many corpses on the ground. Some belonged to the enemy, and some belonged to the creatures of the dark world. There was a dangerous aura everywhere. Who knew if the army of the dark world would suddenly attack? At this moment, they had to quickly return to the main camp. "There's someone." The Baokai suddenly became alert. It saw a place with mountains of corpses and a sea of blood in front of it. transmitting a weak cry for help. Then, the Bao-Cai's eyes almost popped out. A peerless beauty from the immortal world. The armor wrapped around her graceful body was broken, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. It was enchanting. The peerless beauty struggled in pain. Although there was some blood on her snow-white body, it couldn't hide her charm to the bone. She was completely a peerless beauty, moving one's heartstrings. She wanted to climb up from the pool of blood, but she couldn't do it. The Bao-Cai wanted to rush over to save this peerless beauty, but its body suddenly surged with a terrifying confinement power. The Bao-Cai didn't say a word. It calmed down and hibernated in the void. Is there something wrong? Some creatures of the dark world were very cunning. They had once set up a trap. Fortunately, Su Yin saw through it. Otherwise, it really didn't know if he would be able to return alive. Su Yan's expression was cold and emotionless. He calmly looked at the scene in front of him. The heaven-opening writing brush in his hand glowed. All kinds of mysterious patterns were hazy, connecting with the dilapidated and bloody world in front of him. Gradually, a vast star ocean prison appeared. The Bao-Cai's expression was ugly. It was another trap. This was an especially terrifying killing trap, enough to trap the Daesong. Something's not right. It frowned. In the vast sea of stars in front of it, there were many powerhouses from the immortal world entrenched in the prison. Daesong. Su Yan's expression suddenly sank. He shouted 5 Daesong. The Bao-Cai felt a chill run down its spine. 5 Daesong entrenched in the heaven and earth killing trap. Were they waiting for them here? The beautiful woman was obviously the prey. Her snow-white skin was exposed, and she was charming to the bone. Every painful expression on her face and the soft moans from her bright red lips could arouse the most primitive desires of the human body. Su Yan's expression was cold. There was no other emotion in his eyes except indifference. Wasn't it too much of a coincidence? After all, there wasn't one on the way here, but there was such a huge killing trap on the way back. Su Yan's majestic spiritual power leaked out of his sea of consciousness. Together with the power of the heaven-opening writing brush, he was infinitely close to the Star Ocean prison. However, he didn't dare to get too close. Daesong's perception was too strong, and he would be easily discovered. Why hasn't that little thing returned yet? Is your information accurate? I saw it clearly. He indeed left to chase after the dark creatures and rushed into the depths. It should be time for him to return. I really don't know what's so special about him that we have to capture him alive. They were talking and discussing. Su Yin vaguely caught some words, and his expression instantly turned ugly. Xian people. It was definitely the Xian people. They set a trap here to capture him. Bao-Cai almost exploded with anger. After 10 years of bloody battles, he had killed countless enemies. As soon as his protector left, the Xian people wanted to stab him in the back. Dezhang. Chapter 1807. Su Yan's face was gloomy. The 5 Daesong were entrenched in the Star Sea prison. Their expressions were cold, and they were constantly observing the surroundings. They were baiting him. They were waiting for him to take the bait. This was too much. Once he really fell into the trap, there was little hope for him to escape. After all, these were Daesong experts. There were even 5 of them. This was simply insane. Su Yin suppressed the raging fire in his heart. His face was gloomy. Now that the outer realm had suffered heavy casualties, the Xian people actually had the mood to target him at this time. Bao-Cai was proficient in the art of shape-shifting. It could hide in the void. Even Daesong experts could not easily catch its trace. Xian people, this bunch of bastards, they've gone too far. Bao-Cai was violent. For 10 years, it had killed countless enemies in the dark world. No one knew how much credit it had accumulated. However, the Xian people actually played dirty here. It was simply intolerable. Su Yin could not take this lying down. At first, he wanted to change the killing trap in front of him and trap the 5 Daesong experts inside. But then he shook his head. After all, the Xian people had sent 5 Daesong experts. No matter how powerful the killing trap was, it would be difficult to suppress them. Even if the impact was too great, the Xian people were likely to accuse them of playing dirty tricks on their own people. The Xian people were powerful, and their influence in the immortal world was even greater. He had to admit that it was too difficult to shake the Xian people. After all, they were the supreme sovereign race, and they were qualified to influence the general trend of the immortal world. Xian people, let's wait and see. I, Su Yin, will not be bullied by you for the rest of my life. Su Yin said coldly, Bao Kai, let's go first and leave this place. Are we just going to let it go? Bao Kai was furious. It had only been a few months since the Protector left, and the Xian people could not wait to make a move. They were really unscrupulous. Of course not. Su Yan's expression was cold as he said, let's go back first. Let's talk to Brother Yang Hui and see if we can take the opportunity to counter the Xian people. These 5 bastards won't leave in a short time. Let's be careful on the way back. Don't let anyone find out that we're back. Bao Kai was helpless. This was the only thing they could do. Daesung was still some distance away from them. If it was an ordinary cultivator, it would be extremely difficult to touch Daesung's domain without tens of thousands of years, and this was under the condition that they had sufficient resources. It wasn't easy to make a breakthrough in the Daesung realm. One had to accumulate enough resources in the Sage realm. Su Yan's potential would require an astronomical amount of resources to break through to the Daesung realm. It's time to think about the title of king. If we want to establish ourselves in the celestial world in the future, having a title will give us another layer of protection. Bao Kai suddenly whispered. He had never thought about it before. He did not care about the title of king of the Xian people. But now, he felt that the title of king would be of great help to them. At least with this identity, it would be difficult for the Xian people to target them at will. There were hundreds of battlefields in the outer world battlefield. The immortal Phoenix army guarded a vast area. There were also many stone houses built in this area. There were injured and disabled generals recuperating in them. There were also soldiers patrolling everywhere. The attacks of the Dark World slowed down, which gave them time to breathe. However, they had to maintain absolute combat power to prevent the Dark World from suddenly launching a large-scale battle. If they could not hold on and lost the battlefield, they would have to bear the blame and also bring a stain to the army. Along the way, Bao Kai cursed and was indignant. He was about to give up. Of course, he was just saying. This battle was called upon by the protectors of the royal city to fight for their world. If they lost the battlefield and the celestial world was defeated, then the entire universe would be threatened. This was the origin of their life, their roots. They could lose anything, but their home could not be destroyed. Suddenly, terrifying waves of energy spread out, making Su Yin and Bao Kai feel suffocated. They saw an immortal demon whose bloody aura could drown a great world standing in the sea of stars. This was a bronze-colored body. His head was the firmament, and his feet were the wilderness. The sun, moon, and stars in the sky seemed small in front of his majestic figure. His body flowed with a forbidden light, as if the laws of the Emperor's Tao were pressing down. The great Tao of heaven and earth wailed continuously. War Monarch! Su Yin and Bao Kai stepped forward and bowed. The War Monarch had just come out of seclusion. His chi and blood leaked out, creating a considerable pressure on them. Soon, the figure in front of them gradually retracted his aura. It was a peerlessly handsome middle-aged man. He was majestic, and his body was covered in scars and blood. He walked over and nodded at Su Yin and Bao Kai. After 10 years of bloody battle, he knew exactly how many experts Su Yin and Bao Kai had killed. He smiled and said, "You're back. Go back and rest." His name was Kongxing, and he was the disciple of the royal city's protector. He was also the current leader of the immortal Phoenix army. Over the years, he had taught Su Yin many times. At the same time, he was the greatest pillar of support on this battlefield. Su Yin hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The War Monarch was the greatest deterrent on this battlefield. He had wanted to tell the War Monarch about what had happened, but he was worried that the War Monarch would offend the Xian people. The royal city's protector had already left and probably wouldn't return for a while. Kongxing was a straightforward person. If he knew about this, he would definitely stand up for him. However, this was Su Yan's personal matter, and it concerned the Xian people. He didn't want to implicate others. If you have something to say it. Kongxing sharply sensed Su Yan's hesitation and asked, "Did you encounter some problems in your cultivation?" Kongxing really wanted Su Yin to join the Immortal Phoenix Army, but he didn't express it. The main reason was that the Immortal Phoenix Army was no longer the army it used to be. Su Yin still had a lot of room for growth. In the future, he would definitely be able to make a name for himself in the Celestial Realm. Su Yin smiled bitterly. Bao Kai was very direct. He said angrily, "War Monarch, on our way back, we encountered someone who wanted to kill us. They even set up a great formation and lured us into a trap." Hearing this, Kongxing's expression suddenly turned cold. His eyes flashed coldly, and he said, "Kill you? Tell me clearly who did it." Su Yin didn't hide anything and told him what had happened on the way back. Kongxing's expression was extremely cold. He knew a bit about what had happened 10 years ago, but the fact that the Xian people dared to attack him here really angered him. Su Yin, who had achieved great feats on the battlefield, was being stabbed in the back by his own people at any time. How would Su Yin view the Celestial Realm? Bastard! War Monarch was furious. He felt a burning pain in his face, as if he had been slapped in the face. "You all go back first. I will uphold justice for you. Any scum on the battlefield will be eliminated." War Monarch left, heading towards the distant world. Bao Kai took a deep breath. War Monarch left without hesitation. At this moment, he felt a strong sense of belonging to the Immortal Phoenix Army. Su Yin subconsciously felt that if the Sword Sect founder and the others followed the Immortal Phoenix Army, they would be able to establish themselves in the Celestial Realm in the future. They had often communicated over the years. A group of experts from the undying heavenly realm who had achieved great feats on the battlefield all wanted to go to the Celestial Realm. However, if the Celestial Realm really had no one to rely on, then the current Immortal Phoenix Army would be an excellent place to belong. "Do you think War Monarch will kill those scum on the spot?" Bao Kai asked on the way back. It was a pity that War Monarch didn't let them go with him. "What's the hurry? With War Monarch's strength, he'll be able to easily kill those Daesong." Su Yin said with a smile. "Brother Yang Hui, quickly give me a demonic transformation pill." Soon, Bao Kai rushed into a large tent. The old cultivator was in charge of distributing resources and ensuring the Immortal Phoenix Army supplies. "We don't have any resources at the moment. The demonic transformation pill was used up a few days ago, and we only have 2 sets of armor left. I'm worried now." Yang Hui frowned. Su Yin frowned. They could hold on for a while without the demonic transformation pill, but if they didn't have the armor, how could they survive on the battlefield? "Why aren't the resources here yet?" Bao Kai said with a dark expression. "My armor is about to be damaged, and the dark matter is corroding my body. I can't even use 70% to 80% of my combat strength. I'm not sure about the exact situation." Yang Hui sighed. Then, he said, "Perhaps your injuries are too severe. Bear with it for a while. I'll hurry them up later. I should be able to bring back some demonic transformation pills." "How many trips have you made?" Su Yin asked. Everything was really not going well. Yang Hui was momentarily speechless. He stammered and didn't say anything. Su Yin had a premonition that something was wrong. He hurriedly asked. He didn't care if they had the materials or not. But how could the other soldiers resist? "Don't ask. I'll think of a way." Yang Hui said, "I'll go now. I'll definitely bring back a batch of demonic transformation pills to temporarily solve the urgent situation." Mother Asterisker, the Tao Protector, just left. "Our supplies are about to be cut off. Some bastard must have embezzled them." Bao-Tsai's temper was especially irritable. It almost died on the map. It suddenly roared. This gave Yang Hui a shock. He said, "Don't talk nonsense. You don't have any proof. If word gets out, it won't be a small matter. If the other armies are like us, we won't say a word." Su Yan's face was cold. "I'm just afraid that someone is deliberately targeting us. 10 years ago, the Celestial Martial King was almost killed by the Tao Protector. The Sky Tyrant Lord and the others were all sent to the first battlefield. They couldn't return for 10,000 years. That was 10,000 years. Would the Emperor race let it go? In these 10 years, their supplies had never decreased. After the Tao Protector left for a few months, the supplies were getting lesser and lesser. Even the Xian people started to show their ugly faces. This wasn't a coincidence. They were definitely targeting them. Not only Su Yin, but the immortal Phoenix army was also targeted. Bastard! Su Yan's eyes burned with a raging fire. The soldiers had fought in the dark world and shed their blood. A large number of soldiers had fallen every day. If some people from the Immortal Clan really dared to embezzle their resources during this period of time, they were truly heartless. I'll go again. If they don't give it to me, I won't return. Yang Hui's face was cold. Bao Kai and Su Yin insisted on going. Yang Hui couldn't persuade them and brought them to the Immortal Gate. The Immortal Gate was a place for recuperation. Those who were seriously injured were recuperating in the Immortal Gate. The buildings here were very grand and filled with the aura of war. There were enforcers in the Immortal Gate who closely interrogated the people who came and went. Yang Hui wasn't an ordinary person. He represented the Immortal Phoenix Army and brought Su Yin and the others without any obstructions. They quickly approached the Hall of Merit. The hall was huge, and there were experts guarding the door. Please inform the two of you that the Immortal Phoenix Army is here to collect supplies, Yang Hui said to the guards at the door. Wait. The two guards looked a little arrogant. Although they were only guarding the door, this job had a lot of power. The Immortal Phoenix Army was once terrifying, but that was a long time ago. It was very difficult to bring it to the table now. Bao Kai looked on coldly. This guard had gone in for a while before he slowly came back. Seeing this scene, Bao Kai was infuriated. They were fighting a bloody battle, fighting to the death with the Dark World's powerhouses. But these people were only in charge of material distribution. How could they be so lazy? Did they really treat them as war slaves? Elder has something to do. Come back tomorrow. The guard's cold words instantly angered Bao Kai. It was about to speak when Su Yin stopped it and said, It's fine. We can wait. After all, the supplies are used up. Brat, what do you mean by that? You won't leave if we don't give it to you? Don't you have any responsibility? The guard at the door was angry and scolded. There's nothing to do even if we go back. Su Yin also said slowly, The supplies are used up. Even if we go back now, we won't be able to hold on. If the experts of the Immortal Phoenix Army all die on the battlefield, we can live and let the world know why we lost. I think you guys are just greedy for life and afraid of death. You should be punished. The two guards were angry. This was a threat. If they couldn't hold on, they would have to bear the responsibility. Say that again. Yang Hui's eyes turned cold as he looked at the two guards. His eyes looked a little scary, making the two guards panic. They couldn't speak for a while. Brother Yang Hui, it's fine. Let them speak, Su Yin said in a low voice. I've already recorded this scene and will hand it over to the guardian of the royal city. I'll let him know that the Immortal Phoenix Army is actually all greedy and afraid of death. The two guards were so angry that they were trembling. There was a trace of fear in their hearts. If the guardian of the royal city knew about this, it wouldn't be a small matter. They might even lose their lives. What are you arguing about? At this moment, a valiant-looking man walked out of the Hall of Merit. He frowned and criticized them. Wasn't this the heroic martial king? Yang Hui was instantly angered. Isn't the elder not here? Why did the heroic martial king come out? Impudent. The two guards immediately straightened their backs and said with disdain, This is the current elder of the Hall of Merit. He is in charge of the allocation of all materials. You are too blind. You don't even know who the elder of the Hall of Merit is. If I remember correctly, you, the heroic martial king, should be fighting on the battlefield. Why did you become the elder of the Hall of Merit just after the guardian left? Yang Hui's expression turned ugly. He finally understood. No wonder the resources were delayed. So it was because of the Xian people. Were they angry that the guardian punished the immortal martial king too harshly? Are you doubting me or the current commander of the celestial sect? The aura of the heroic martial king surged up into the sky. His words were earth-shattering. The current commander of the celestial sect was a major character of the Xian people. He was the guardian of the royal city before this. In these 10 years, I have killed countless enemies and made great contributions. What's the big deal about becoming an elder of the Hall of Merit? The heroic martial king said proudly. On the contrary, your immortal Phoenix army has been slacking off. Don't think that just because you're the guardian's old subordinates, you can do nothing but collect resources and enjoy life. With a single sentence, he had belittled the immortal Phoenix army to the point that they were worthless. Chapter 1808. Heroic Martial King's words were very loud and spread throughout the entire immortal sect, causing a huge commotion. Many experts who were recuperating in the immortal sect had uncertain expressions on their faces. Although the immortal Phoenix army had declined, many people had seen how the army had withstood the endless assault of the Dark World's army for the past 10 years. Now, Heroic Martial King had actually spoken such malicious words and belittled the immortal Phoenix army. Some people couldn't take it anymore and rushed over. Even more people had cold expressions on their faces. Xian people were emperor clans after all and had great prestige in the immortal world. They must have found out something. For these soldiers who had fought with their enemies on the battlefield, they hated this kind of people the most. The immortal Phoenix army really can't hold on any longer. Back then, under the leadership of the guardian of the royal city, they were so awe-inspiring and elegant. They belonged to one of the 10 great armies of the immortal world and had millions of soldiers. That's right. There's no need to say more about the guardian. His children all died on the battlefield, and he even relied on his own strength to run the immortal sect for 10 years. The losses must be severe. If he knew that his old subordinates were like this, he would definitely be extremely disappointed. Some people in the immortal sect began to discuss. They were extremely respectful towards the guardian. Now that they knew that the army he created was so weak, their hearts surged with anger. "You're full of nonsense." Yang Hui was extremely angry. He was once a soldier who had experienced hundreds of battles and killed countless enemies. Although he was old and weak, once he exploded, he was like an old lion. He roared, "You dare to slander my immortal Phoenix army? You, Heroic Martial King, have some guts." Yang Hui was about to explode from anger. The immortal Phoenix army had lived a glorious life. From the glorious days of the immortal Phoenix army, there were millions of soldiers left. After a long period of bloody battles, less than 1/10 of the immortal Phoenix army remained. Although most of them were disabled soldiers and retired, they viewed their life in the immortal Phoenix army as the greatest glory and glory of their lives. Now, a mere Heroic Martial King dared to trample on the dignity of the immortal Phoenix army. Yang Hui wanted to fight him to the death. A mere little saint dares to show off in front of me. The Heroic Martial King's authority was overwhelming, and his aura was even more earth-shattering. After all, he was a Daesong elite, and the energy that filled his entire body was terrifying beyond compare. Once he unleashed his aura and suppressed the entire galaxy, he immediately suppressed Yang Hui. Furthermore, he said sternly, "You still dare to question my words? Who doesn't know that our Xian people's army of 300,000 is engaged in a bloody battle on the battlefield, and your immortal Phoenix army is merely a small army of 10,000 remnants? All you do is slack off and not do proper work, and you still have the face to come here and ask for resources? If it weren't for the fact that I'm a Tao protector, I would have kicked you out long ago." The Heroic Martial Monarch's words were as cold as thunder in Yang Hui's ears. The storm it caused in the Immortal Gate became even more shocking. "You shameless villain, what proof do you have to humiliate my army's might?" Yang Hui was furious. "If you don't make things clear today, my immortal Phoenix army will not let this matter rest. Do you think I have nothing better to do than to find evidence in your army? If I have a time, I might as well kill a few Dark World elites." The Heroic Martial King coldly replied, "Furthermore, your immortal Phoenix army even brought a group of small cultivators from the wasteland of the lower realm to get resources. Don't tell me you brought a group of trash to war. What a joke. Who are you calling trash?" Bao Cai's body was already burning with a raging fire. "Do you think I'll hurt you by calling you trash?" The Heroic Martial King glanced at Bao Cai from the corner of his eyes. Then, he was slightly startled and stared at Su Yan without blinking. His brows furrowed. Su Yan's heart skipped a beat. There was something wrong with the Heroic Martial King's gaze. He immediately reacted. The Heroic Martial King definitely knew that there were 5 Daesongs hunting him down. Perhaps this matter was related to him. "It's you." The Heroic Martial King's expression suddenly sank. He suddenly roared, "Guards, someone has snuck into the immortal world gate. Where are the enforcers? Come and suppress them." His words once again shook the entire immortal gate. A large group of enforcers rushed over, forming a sea of fury. All sorts of laws and orders filled the air. "What's going on?" The surrounding cultivators were shocked as they stared at Su Yin and Tai Baokai. Snuck into the immortal world gate? Just who were these two? Some people were shocked as they looked at Su Yin. They suddenly remembered that at the beginning of the war, Su Yin had torn apart a black-blooded beast. But in the following years, the battlefield had expanded and the ancient road army had fought bitterly. During this period of hardship, some of the kings who had a deep impression of Su Yin found it difficult to pay attention to Su Yan's movements. Only a few people were shaken. They knew a bit about what had happened 10 years ago. It was said that a cultivator from the mortal world had killed the genius of the immortal cave, Xianyu. This matter hadn't spread and was only a rumor. Many people didn't believe it and didn't dare to spread it for fear of causing a disaster. Suppress. Dozens of enforcers rushed over from all directions, their expressions dignified. After all, King Valiant was an elder of the Hall of Merit and had the authority to order them to do things. They directly forced Su Yin to suppress him. "Who dares to capture me?" Su Yin's eyes shot out two cold bolts of lightning. In almost an instant, his aura skyrocketed and became much more terrifying. After 10 years of bloody battle, Su Yan's entire body was covered in a thick stench of blood. The sky cracked, and the stars in the sky trembled. This was a boundless stench of blood that rushed into the universe. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood appeared between heaven and earth, suppressing all life in the universe. The surrounding people were dumbfounded. Just how many experts of the dark world had he killed? The stench of blood soared into the heavens, and strange phenomena appeared amidst it. It was like a sea of blood, and the expert's dignity was like a surging ocean. Although he was a sixth heaven sage, his deterrence was still quite frightening. "Who dares?" Su Yin roared. His hair danced in the wind, and lightning shot out from his eyes. His entire body was surging with holy power, and he turned into a terrifying, immortal demon. Standing at the peak of the sea of corpses, the dozens of enforcers were frightened, as if they were facing a prehistoric monster. Some of the enforcers' legs went soft, and they almost fell to the ground. A suffocating aura filled their hearts, and the group of enforcers was covered in cold sweat. What kind of monster was this? "King Valiant, are you mistaken?" Someone spoke. This was a powerful king, and he was very shocked. Su Yin must have killed the heavens chosen of the dark world. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a ferocious demonic aura leaking out. Many people nodded and began to question King Valiant. "You are audacious. How dare you resist the enforcers?" King Valiant's face was a little embarrassed, and he angrily rebuked, "Any expert who steps into the immortal sect must be strictly investigated to prevent the experts of the dark world from sneaking in." "You mean I'm from the dark world?" Su Yin laughed angrily and pointed at King Valiant. "You must be responsible for your words." "Hee, I don't know if you're from the dark world or not." King Valiant coldly laughed. "But you are from the lower realm. What qualifications do you have to step into the immortal sect? Who gave you the guts to step into the immortal sect?" "Someone from the lower realm?" The surroundings were in an uproar. Everyone knew that the human realm was weak, and the cultivation environment was quite weak. If this young man really came from the lower realm, then how many creatures of the dark world had he killed in the past 10 years? 10 years of bloody battles, killing countless enemies. Are we not allowed to stand in the immortal sect? Baokai angrily roared, "Old thing, you're going too far. Previously, you questioned the immortal Phoenix army, and now you're suppressing us. What are your intentions?" Baocai's words were even more arrogant than King Valiant's. He wanted to make a big deal out of this. When the time came, Skystar War King would capture the 5-day song and see how he would explain it. "They don't understand." "Don't tell me they don't understand." King Valiant glared at Yang Hui and said, "The immortal sect doesn't allow any outsiders to come in without receiving guidance. You're also a veteran. Don't tell me you don't know. You're also making a mountain out a molehill, right? Yang Hui angrily shouted. Just because of this, you want to suppress a meritorious person. King Valiant, do you think that now that you're the immortal sex commander, you can do whatever you want? What meritorious person? King Valiant coldly said. How much meritorious can he be? If he really killed countless enemies, then I'm even more suspicious. A cultivator from the wasteland of the lower realm. How much can he be worth? I'm seriously doubting his current identity. What do you want to do? Yang Hui's expression changed. Thoroughly investigate their identities. Normally, they would have to go through certain procedures to come to the immortal world. Now, do it quickly to prevent unnecessary danger. King Valiant coldly said, use the mirror to see if their primordial spirits have been taken over by creatures of the dark world. Check their storage space to see if they carry any contamination. Crackle, crackle. Su Yin clenched his fists, and his expression was extremely gloomy. What are you waiting for? If a disaster happens, do you all want to be buried with him? King Valiant shouted at the hesitant enforcers. If you can't find anything, I'll personally apologize. Let's see who dares. Yang Hui's declining chi and blood were boiling, and his messy hair danced wildly. Using the mirror to check Su Yan's primordial spirit, and checking his storage space was a humiliation to him. You keep making excuses. I'm starting to suspect that your immortal Phoenix army is in cahoots with the dark world. King Valiant directly raised a large hand and suppressed Yang Hui. At the same time, he coldly said, today, I must investigate clearly. I've always suspected that your immortal Phoenix army only has 10,000 elite soldiers. What qualifications do you have to resist the Dark World's invasion for 10 years? No matter how hard Yang Hui struggled, he could not resist King Valiant's suppression. After all, he was at the peak of the Sage Realm. How could he fight against a Daesong expert? This group of enforcers also braced themselves and rushed over. Su Yin woke up in silence, and his blood was burning with anger. Boom! His feet stomped on the ground, and his entire body surged with monstrous chi waves that shook the surroundings. In an instant, more than 10 enforcers were sent flying. Roar! Su Yin roared into the sky. He was like an immortal and a devil, and the phenomenon he emitted was even more shocking. The heaven and earth trembled, and a vast storm rose within the immortal gate. So strong. The surrounding experts who were watching were shocked. More than 10 enforcers were sent flying, and some of them were coughing blood. It was obvious that they had been crushed. Did you see that? This devil has gone crazy. Let me see his original form. King Valiant laughed sinisterly. A mere sage dared to stir up trouble in front of him? Boom! In the immortal gate, a huge palm suddenly appeared. The power of Daesong spread, and it covered the sky and covered the earth as it suppressed Su Yin. He wanted to open his storage space. Once he found the 9-colored broken weapon that King Valiant wanted, he must take it away immediately. No matter what happened, he must take the broken weapon away. Evil creature, show your original form and kneel down. King Valiant laughed sinisterly. His huge palm covered the sun, and it suppressed everything as it rushed towards Su Yin. Daesong attacked, and he wanted to suppress Su Yin. Brothers, please correct a mistake. In the picture of the 10 years of bloody battle, East Demon and the others passed the 8th level. Back then, the old leader opened the path of immortality in the 7th level. The strongest trial of the 8th level, the ultimate destiny, is to transcend mortality and enter the divine. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 1809. Daesong's heavenly might was vast and untouchable. King Yingwu was determined to suppress Su Yin and complete the mission given to him by King Immortal Marshal. Even if he caused some trouble, he didn't care. Moreover, the protectors of the royal city weren't even here. Now that the commander of the Immortal Gate was an important figure of the Xian people, King Yingwu had the chance and time to suppress Su Yin. Since you're asking for death, don't blame me. King Yingwu laughed coldly in his heart. Wouldn't it be better to be suppressed by the 5 Daesong of my race? Why did you come here to be humiliated? Today, even if you don't die, you'll lose a layer of skin. Actually, What King Ingwu didn't know was that the Astral War King had already charged over and forcefully opened the Star River prison. The 5-day song of the Xian people knew that they were done for. They didn't expect to provoke a war king to stand up for Su Yin. This was the Astral War King, an existence of the Imperial Tao. Even he had made a move. The 5-day song's faces were as pale as ashes. Kneel down and bow down. Within the immortal gate, King Ingwu shouted coldly. His heavenly might was vast and mighty. His true body didn't move, but a huge shadow appeared behind him, filling up the entire sea of stars. It spat out cosmic light and was filled with the order of the Tao. This was the Day Song. He could condense a terrifying Dharma form and control the Tao of heaven and earth. He could easily unleash a terrifying attack. A fatal threat came, and a terrifying pressure pressed down on Su Yin. He felt as if he was in the middle of a world of millions of killing swords, and could be destroyed at any time. Ah! Su Yin let out a scream. The heaven-burying cave awakened in his body, causing Su Yan's aura to become stronger and stronger. He was almost at the peak of his saint realm. He was about to rush into the domain of the half-step Day Song in one go. Hurry up and leave. Yang Hui was enraged and anxious. Once Su Yin was suppressed by the heroic martial king, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was impossible for them to escape. King Ingwu was determined to suppress Su Yin. Bao Kai was also boiling with anger. Its body suddenly enlarged and carried Su Yin to the top of the sky. The auras of the two powerhouses almost merged together, and their auras began to climb endlessly. It was as if a half-step Day Song had been born and was also emitting a terrifying aura. Buzz! Bao Kai opened his mouth and spat out a cauldron. The 9 continents' heavenly cauldron spun, and 9 supreme drawings of the great Tao appeared on the cauldron's walls. Saint aura gushed out from the cauldron, sprinkling down boundless energy of order to protect Su Yin and Bao Kai. Boom! The heroic martial king's giant hand had already pressed down, and the laws of order in the sky collapsed. This was an extremely terrifying attack, and the pressure caused the 9 continents' heavenly cauldrons to rumble. A supreme saint might was about to approach Su Yin and Tai Bao Kai. Kill! Su Yin roared angrily. The silent world-destroying halberd suddenly attacked. This pitch-black heavenly halberd was incomparably heavy, and it also gushed out destructive light, crushing the entire space and time as it attacked the giant hand that was pressing down. This is the world-destroying halberd. Isn't this the weapon of the Sky Tyrant Lord? Someone shouted in shock. The world-destroying halberd was not an ordinary treasure. It was quite famous in the immortal world. Why was it in the hands of Su Yin now? Many people were astonished. Could it be that the rumors from 10 years ago were true? Su Yin killed the genius of the reincarnation imperial tribe, and even killed Xian Yu of the immortal cave. If this was true, then Su Yan's potential was truly terrifying. Even when facing Day Song, their expressions didn't change at all. The world-destroying halberd pressed down on King Ingwu's hand until it trembled. This weapon was truly powerful, and it was full of pressure. Even Day Song's strength could forcefully resist it. Resisting the law enforcer suppression, and you even dare to resist the law enforcers, me, and even my investigation. You all are really stupid. King Ingwu's expression became even colder, and the giant hand that he stretched out became even more terrifying. Endless laws and order gathered in the center of his palm, and the vast world was rumbling, resonating with an unparalleled force. The world-destroying halberd was rumbling, and it was about to be unable to withstand it and fly out. Su Yin roared angrily. With your attitude, is this also an investigation? You clearly want to kill me. Old bastard, if you have the ability, then kill me. The aura of heaven burial gushed out of his body like a rolling sea. The heaven burial jar that had been dormant also came to life. Su Yin and Bao Kai worked together to revive this supreme treasure of their sect, forcibly suppressing the great saint's heavenly might that came crashing down. Smelly bug with a mouth full of filth. No matter how talented you are, if you want to show off in front of Daesung, you're really not good enough. Suddenly, King Ying-Wu's aura surged wildly, and even his entire body began to glow. His flesh shell faintly fused with the majestic Dharma idol behind him, emitting an even more turbulent tide of energy. The world in the corner of the celestial gate collapsed, and the destructive light rays evaporated. The world-destroying halberd was sent flying, and the scattered energy from the heaven burial jar was trembling. An abnormally terrifying wave seeped in and pressed down on Su Yin and Bao Cai's bodies. The two roared, and their bodies were about to explode. Su Yan's mouth and nose were bleeding, and he really felt the danger of his body and soul being destroyed. It was as if they were in the vast universe, and they were being pressed down by billions of stars, and they were being hit by countless stars. This was Daesung. At this moment, Su Yin had a deeper understanding of Daesung. Admit defeat, and we'll speak for you. You can't win against a Daesung expert. Someone secretly transmitted his voice, and he couldn't stand it anymore. One Daesung and two Daesung experts were too much. There were also people who sighed. Daesung was indeed extremely powerful. Bao Cai and Su Yin were also very strong. But even if they worked together, they couldn't match King Ying-Wu. One had to know that King Ying-Wu hadn't even erupted with his peak strength. This wasn't a weakling, and he was one of the best in the Daesung domain. In fact, King Ying-Wu was also shocked. This brat really had a lot of treasures on him, and there was an ancient and mysterious heaven burial power constantly emitting from his body, continuously sealing off his energy source. After a long delay, King Ying-Wu's expression was somewhat unsightly. In an instant, his aura became ferocious again, and his body glowed. Billions of strands of cosmic light, and Tao techniques and order surged. His aura was obviously different, and he was like a war god who had severed his shackles. Evil creature, why haven't you knelt down and surrendered? King Ying-Wu pressed forward step by step, and the boundless world swayed as a terrifying sage aura pervaded the air. This world also darkened, and all the light dimmed. Boom! King Ying-Wu raised his hand and slammed it down. He was serious. His body attacked, and the power of Daesung pervaded the air. This was an irresistible divine might, and the nearby saints were paralyzed on the ground. This attack was quite terrifying, and even the heaven and earth exploded. This was the appearance of the all-conquering Daesung. At this moment, Su Yin and Bao Cai glanced at each other. Their eyes flashed with a bone-chilling light, and it was extremely cold. Buzz! In an instant, a snow-white sword radiance erupted and swept through the entire immortal gate. Daesung was terrified. He felt a chill from head to toe, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. It was as if his flesh had been cut apart. This was a terrifying sword radiance. It was too brilliant, and even the heaven and earth collapsed into a huge crack. This was a golden sword core that rushed out, and it emitted an aura that could destroy all immortals in the world. Kill! Bao Cai and Su Yin roared and erupted with the most exuberant energy, reviving a portion of the banishing immortal sword's divine might. At this moment, the immortal gate's color changed. Bloody light overflowed, indicating withering and destruction. The experts inside were all terrified. What kind of supreme treasure was that? The vicious energy was too great, and even the heaven and earth couldn't suppress it. Daesung could feel the destructive pressure. This was the banishing immortal sword. Even though Su Yin and Bao Cai couldn't erupt with this treasure's full power, they could exhaust all of their essence energy and still display a portion of the banishing immortal sword's divine might. Not good. The heroic martial king cried out in alarm. Even he couldn't evade. This sword was too sharp, and it shattered all laws of order. Daesung's divine might was cut apart like paper, and the terrifying sword radiance directly chopped off his entire arm. Bang! A huge arm fell down, and bloody light gushed out like a fountain. Even the entire arm turned into mush, and a fiendish aura rushed out. Ah! The heroic martial king screamed, even more miserably. His arm was broken, but the wound emitted a terrifying aura of destruction. It affected his body, and it made his entire body tremble violently, as if it was going to explode. How can this be? What kind of treasure is this? The people in the surroundings were horrified. Daesung was seriously injured by the attack. Wasn't this killing sword too strange? Many people's eyes turned red as they stared at the banishing immortal sword. Unfortunately, before they could get a closer look, the banishing immortal sword was taken away by Su Yin. Su Yin and Bao Cai's aura was greatly damaged, and their spirits were somewhat dispirited. Exerting all of their strength to erupt with the banishing immortal sword was too great a loss for them, and they couldn't muster much battle strength in a short period of time. Kacha, however, the heroic martial king's injuries were even worse. Half of his body was cracked, and the pain was unbearable. It was tormenting him to the point of insanity. This killing sword contained a terrifying, murderous aura, and once injured, it would affect the body. Old thing, how does it feel? Su Yin coldly shouted, I could have killed you just now, but I didn't kill you. I still have something important to ask you. Little bastard. The heroic martial king screamed, and his eyes were bloodshot. The mighty Daesung had one of his arms chopped off, and it was a great humiliation. He didn't care about the pain of losing his arm, but his dignity was trampled on. He roared, You all deserve to die, and none of you can live. Where's the law enforcement team? Suppress them for me. The group of law enforcement experts were terrified. Even Daesung's arm was chopped off. What qualifications did they have to suppress Su Yin? Moreover, the heroic martial king wasn't the leader of the law enforcement team, so he didn't have the qualifications to mobilize too much of the law enforcement team's power. Otherwise, Daesung would have already killed his way out. Law enforcement team, listen to my orders outside the Celestial Gate. A loud roar suddenly echoed, accompanied by a huge battle order that came crashing down. Law enforcement battle order. The members of the law enforcement team were shocked. At the same time, hundreds of law enforcers rushed out of the Immortal Gate, including 3 extremely dignified Daesung. Their expressions were solemn. They knew that before the Tao Protector left, he had personally appointed a law enforcement team leader, but they didn't know who it was. However, since the Tao Protector personally appointed him, he definitely wasn't a weakling, and must be someone with great battle achievements. Outside the Immortal Gate, the warlord Kongxing rushed over, his killing intent spreading across millions of miles. Along the way, some of the armies were shaken, and the experts leading the army were all shocked. This was a terrifying warlord rushing to the Immortal Gate in anger and throwing out a law enforcement battle order. Clatter. Moreover, he was carrying a blood-stained chain that pierced through the chests of 5 Daesung, crushing the void along the way. The 5 Daesung were on the verge of despair and wanted to be suppressed by the warlord, piercing through their bodies with the chain and dragging them all the way to the Immortal Gate. Haha, you're all finished. The law enforcement leader of the Immortal Gate is here. The heroic martial king laughed maniacally. None of you will live. You dare to attack the elders of the Hall of Merit. You will all be judged for the cruelest crimes. The heroic martial king didn't know who the law enforcer at the Immortal Gate was. This was an existence second only to the Immortal Gate's commander. Since the commander was an important figure of the Xian people, the law enforcer must be on their side. Chapter 1810. Within the Gate of Immortality, hundreds of enforcers stood out, along with Daesung experts. This group of people maintained order within the Gate of Immortality, mainly to prevent creatures from the Dark World from sneaking into the Gate of Immortality. Something like this had happened before, and the entire Gate of Immortality had almost been destroyed. From then on, the Gate of Immortality had enforcers with great power, and they were responsible for some internal disputes within the Gate of Immortality. Before the Guardian of King City left, he appointed a new enforcer commander, but they really didn't know who it was, as this commander had never shown his face. Boom! All of a sudden, the creatures within the Gate of Immortality were shocked to see half a foot across the Gate of Immortality, as if there were millions of stars, and a terrifying demonic aura surged out. Su Yin had slaughtered countless creatures from the Dark World, and formed a scene of demonic aura flooding the sea of stars. However, Zhanwang Kongxing was even more terrifying. After all, the people he killed were all experts of the same level. Every one of them killed by him was a great loss to the dark world. Naturally, his merits could not be compared to the lives that Su Yin had killed. A familiar aura. Yang Hui was agitated. Yang Hui's emotions were stirred. Wasn't this the aura of a battle king? Sure enough, when that figure crossed the gate of immortality, Yang Hui was even more agitated. It really was Warlord Kongxing. Before the Guardian left, he appointed Kongxing as the Enforcer Commander, and no one in the Immortal Phoenix Army knew about this. Greetings, Enforcer Commander. The members of the Enforcers all shouted. This was a warlord, and not someone to be trifled with. He was extremely dignified, and his achievements were monstrous. He deserved their respect. It's him, how can it be? King Heroic Marshal looked as if he had eaten a pile of shit, and his expression was ugly, but he calmed down immediately. The Xian people were the commanders of the Gate of Immortality, and he didn't believe that Kongxing dared decide with Su Yin. Moreover, Su Yin was an outsider, so it wasn't worth Kongxing's effort to side with him, right? Warlord Kongxing. King Heroic Marshal took a deep breath and endured the pain of losing his arm. He stood up and said, "They sneaked into the Gate of Immortality without asking for permission and didn't obey the rules and restrictions. They even dared to kill me and almost took my life. What do you think we should do?" Pa! A palm came crashing down from the sky. Heroic Marshal King was powerless to resist. His face directly exploded as his body flew out and smashed into the street. The cultivators of the immortal sect were dumbfounded. What was going on? He immediately made his move. King Yingwu was a noble and even shouldered the position of an elder in the Hall of Merit. His identity and status were not to be underestimated. Even though Kongxing was the commander of the law enforcement, he still needed to investigate the truth first, right? However, he directly took action, shocking many people. The heroic Marshal King felt as if he was dreaming just now. Half of his face had exploded, and it was truly too horrible to look at. His finger trembled as he pointed at Kongxing. Kongxing, how dare you? He roared hysterically. Pooh! In the next moment, he howled miserably as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His vision began to darken, and he couldn't even see how Kongxing had moved. All he could feel was the weight of gravity slamming into his chest, suffocating him to the point of fainting. With one palm and one punch, Heroic Marshal King lost half of his life. Heroic Marshal King was about to go crazy. He was a noble of the Xian people. Even though Kongxing was the commander of the Immortal Sect's law enforcement, he still beat him up in front of everyone. Even if he had a Dao protector behind him, what right did he have to target him? Many people looked at Kongxing. He was as cold as an immortal demon overlord. He stood in the middle of the Immortal Sect without saying a word. His body was also covered in blood-stained armor. He was so cold that it was suffocating. Even though he was a middle-aged man, Kongxing was also a handsome man when he was young. His cold and terrifying appearance made some of the female soldiers in the city take a second look at him. Law enforcement team. Kongxing raised his hand, and a group of law enforcement team members instantly rushed over. Their aura was earth-shattering, and they were extremely brave. Suppress him and send him to the dark dungeon. The cold words made heroic Marshal King feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He roared miserably, "Bastard Kongxing, who gave you the guts to suppress me and even send me to the dark dungeon?" The law enforcement team ignored heroic Marshal King's words and rushed up to suppress him. Everyone took out heavy shackles. "Where is the commander? Where is the commander?" Heroic Marshal King panicked. Kongxing was serious and wanted to send him to the dark dungeon. What exactly happened? Why is it so noisy? The great figure of the Xian people finally appeared. Before he even arrived, extremely terrifying waves of energy filled the immortal sect. His voice was calm, but it was like a clap of thunder that shook everyone's hearts. The entire immortal sect fell silent. Everyone was trembling in fear. Even the generals who had experienced hundreds of battles were terrified. Su Yan was shocked. This great figure of the Xian people was truly terrifying. Perhaps he was an expert on the same level as the Tao Protector. Commander of the Immortal Desert, Kong Xing cupped his hands at the faintly discernible figure in the primal chaos. Then, he said coldly, I'm the commander of the law enforcement team. I am in charge of enforcing the war orders. If someone breaks the law in the Immortal Sect, I will punish him. Do you have any objections? Impudent. The faintly discernible figure in the primal chaos was slightly angered. Immediately, the terrifying scene of the Immortal Sect rumbling was created. He said coldly, What law did he break? Speak. Kong Xing, you are clearly avenging your personal grudge. King Heroic Marshal also roared, I am so wronged. As the commander of the law enforcement team, you want to suppress me without investigating the truth. You even want to throw me into the dark prison. Why do you have to be the commander? If you don't give me an explanation today, before King Heroic Marshal could finish his words, the void exploded. A tragic aura spread. A dark chain with blood-red light fell from the sky. It lay between heaven and earth. On the chain, one Daesong expert after another had their chests pierced. They were almost dead. Everyone in the city was dumbfounded. 5 Daesong experts were pierced through by the chain and laid in the Immortal Sect. Su Yan was speechless. Kong Xing was indeed not an ordinary person. He had hidden his identity as the commander of the law enforcement team until now. As expected of the Tao Protector's disciple, King Heroic Marshal was trembling all over. Sweat poured down his forehead like rain. Fear surged in his heart. It was as if an invisible hand had grabbed his heart, making it hard for him to breathe. How could this be? 5 Daesong experts were suppressed, and it was Kong Xing who did it. He even brought them to the Immortal Sect and laid them out in front of everyone. This is not an expert of the Xian people. Many people were scared. The 5 Daesong experts were all experts of the Xian people. What did they do? They angered a war king and used such a method to pierce through his body. In the chaos, there was silence. According to investigation, Kong Xing said coldly, The 5 of them set a trap to kill me. You are full of nonsense. King Heroic Marshal was about to go crazy. Killing Su Yan and killing a war king were 2 completely different concepts. Kong Xing waved his hand, causing everything that had just occurred to be projected out from his sea of consciousness onto the door of immortality. From the time he had rescued the young woman to the time he had been suppressed by 5 great sages, it was all shown to everyone in the world. The entire Immortal Sect was in an uproar. Killing a war king? Who gave him the guts? The memories in the Immortal Sect's Immortal Sect couldn't be faked. The 5 Daesong experts who were on the brink of death wouldn't just sit there and wait for death. They all complained that they had killed the wrong person. They were supposed to lure the creatures of the dark world into a trap, but the war king came. Commander of the Immortal Desert, what do you think of this? Kong Xing asked. A figure appeared in the calm chaos and said coldly, I believe their words more. You're a war king. Why do they have to kill you? No matter how strong the formation is, it can't kill you. The Immortal Desert's words caused quite a stir. Kong Xing was an expert of the Imperial Path. How could the 5 Daesong dare to kill him? At this moment, Kong Xing's forehead split open. Don't kill me. I've told you everything I can. It was King Heroic Marshal who asked me to do it. It has nothing to do with me. I just wanted to lure someone into a trap. I don't know anything else. It was King Heroic Marshal who asked me to do it. The entire Immortal Sect was in an uproar again. A beautiful woman wearing a tattered armor, revealing a large part of her snow-white skin. She was screaming in fear. She was suppressed by the War King in the Immortal Sect's Immortal Sect. Kong Xing's Immortal Sect's Immortal Sect's Immortal Sect's Immortal Sect was even worse than hell. How could a woman like her withstand it? She had already broken down and said whatever was asked. King Heroic Marshal. Gradually, the woman stopped panicking. When she saw King Heroic Marshal, she screamed, King Heroic Marshal, save me. Save me. Bastard, shut up. I don't even know you. King Heroic Marshal was panicking. He then roared, You are framing me. Framing me. What a joke. I just casually asked and knew that this woman was your concubine. Now you are telling me that you don't know her? Kong Xing laughed angrily. King Heroic Marshal, you are really stubborn. Throw him into the dungeon immediately. The enforcers were already enraged. No matter who it was, King Heroic Marshal wanted to kill an expert from the same camp on the battlefield. This was no doubt a great taboo on the battlefield. It angered many soldiers. Wait, Immortal Mo in the chaos stopped him. You want to be biased? Kong Xing's face was cold. He was really angry. The truth was right there. Immortal Mo was still siding with King Heroic Marshal. No, if there is really a scum in my tribe, I will definitely punish them. Immortal Mo said coldly. The 5 of them broke the law. I won't say anything about punishing them. But what does this have to do with King Heroic Marshal? Do you think I will believe her one-sided words? King Heroic Marshal was a noble. The 5 suppressed Daesung were not nobles. He could give them up so easily. Kong Xing's face was cold. For such a thing, their sea of consciousness had long been sealed. Their memories could not be dug out. Even King Heroic Marshal's concubine did not know who to kill. She was just bait. Her memories could be dug out, but they had no value. As for the 5 Daesung, their faces were ashen. They were in despair. Immortal Mo could not protect them in front of so many people. We were wrong. We only wanted to target an enemy. King Heroic Marshal's involvement was just an accident. The 5 Daesung admitted their guilt. We seduced King Heroic Marshal's concubine. This has nothing to do with King Heroic Marshal. We can accept any punishment. Su Yan's face was ugly. Immortal Mo was really ruthless. She made them admit their guilt and protect King Heroic Marshal. Since the matter has been investigated and they have admitted their guilt, you can decide whether they live or die. Immortal Mo said indifferently, disperse. It is a mess. Bao Cai's eyes widened in anger. This was too ruthless. One had to know that killing one's own people on the battlefield was a death sentence. The 5 Daesung could not live. Just to protect King Heroic Marshal, 5 Daesung were sent to their deaths. This made it see the Xian people in a new light. Wait, Kong Xing spoke, angering Immortal Mo. An unstoppable heavenly aura surged from the chaos, causing War King Kong Xing to tremble. Kong Xing roared, forcefully resisting the forbidden aura. He roared, "This matter is over. You have humiliated my immortal Phoenix army. You, King Heroic Marshal, deserve to die." Wah! This roar caused King Heroic Marshal to spit out a mouthful of blood. His body almost collapsed. A King Heroic Marshal was enraged. One could imagine how big of a storm it would cause. Kong Xing threw out the war achievement steal. He had killed many strong people of the same generation. This was already a great achievement. Now that the truth was out, King Heroic Marshal was so desperate that he could not say a word. Everyone had seen how he had insulted the immortal Phoenix army. He could not refute this at all. Punish him according to the law. Immortal Mo's heart was bleeding. King Heroic Marshal was a junior that he valued, but he had to punish him now. Otherwise, the hearts of all the soldiers in the world would turn cold. No one dared to question War King's achievements. They were right there. Su Yan, Kong Xing roared. How shall we punish him for this crime? Reporting to Lord War King. Su Yan roared. He should be beaten 50 times with the rod. War King waved his hand, and a heavy iron rod came crashing down. It shattered the void, and a terrifying wave of energy flowed. Yang Hui wanted to walk over and execute the punishment. However, Su Yan moved very quickly. He stretched out one arm and gripped the rod tightly. The blood in his body was roaring. He did not believe that 50 strikes could not kill King Heroic Marshal. At the same time, War King threw the beautiful woman to Su Yan and said, "Your performance just now is not bad. This woman is your reward." Chapter 1811. Heroic Marshal King was trembling with anger. Kong Xing was doing this on purpose. He wanted Su Yan to personally execute the punishment. Just now, he had made things difficult for Su Yan and even wanted to suppress him. Now that Su Yan was holding the rod, how could he let him off so easily? This was the military rule of the 50 armies, an extremely harsh punishment. Even 10 strokes of the rod was a heavy punishment. Immortal Mo's expression was also a little ugly. Was he not leaving him any face? However, he could not say anything else. He had already protected heroic Martial King. His act of slandering the immortal Phoenix army was too stupid. He had to be punished. If this matter reached the ears of the Guardians, it would not be a simple 50 strokes of the rod. He would be thanking the gods if he could keep his life. The reason why heroic Martial King was so unrestrained was mainly because the Guardians had suffered heavy losses. They had gone into seclusion to recuperate after returning to the capital. They would not come out for a while. Now, not only did Su Yin not die, but he had also gotten himself into trouble. Kong Xing, you've gone too far. Heroic Martial King roared in his heart. This was a woman with skin as white as water, and she was his most beloved concubine. She was born with unparalleled beauty, and was even a peerless pearl from the royal family under the immortal race. If not for baiting Su Yin, heroic Martial King would not have been willing to use his most beloved concubine as bait. However, Kong Xing had directly given this woman to Su Yin. It would be strange if she ended up in his hands. No, don't. The beautiful woman was terrified. Her body trembled. Giving her to Su Yin definitely meant that he was heroic Martial King's enemy. She did not dare to believe her fate. You vicious woman, what are you shouting for? Su Yin slapped her and shouted angrily, how dare you set a trap for the soldiers on the battlefield? If not for the War King's wise judgment, who knows how many innocent people would have died because of your trap? The woman was terrified. The bloody palm print on her delicate face was exceptionally eye-catching. She did not expect things to turn out this way. Heroic Martial King was an elder of the Hall of Merit after all. Who would have thought that even he could not withstand Kong Xing's attack and would be sentenced to 50 strokes of the rod? Kong Xing nodded slightly. Su Yin had not disappointed him. After all, this woman was too coquettish, and not many men could resist her. It seemed that Su Yin was not a man who lusted after women. He admired Su Yin even more. Su Yin, the heroic Martial King, let out a mournful roar. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was about to explode from anger. This was a slap to his face. He let out a roar and wanted to roar Su Yin to death. You still dare to glare at me? Su Yin smashed him with his stick. Heroic Martial King let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered. The Enforcer's staff directly struck his body. This was the Enforcer's staff, and it was forged from special materials. Once it struck a person's body, both the physical body and the primordial spirit would suffer a thunderous blow. Those who were weaker would be unable to withstand it, and their primordial spirit would be destroyed. Within the gate of immortality, miserable screams continued to reverberate. Many people could not bear to look at it. The ground was covered in blood and broken bones. It was too tragic. Su Yin's physical strength was too strong. With the Enforcer's staff in hand, every strike was like a meteor falling from the sky. It caused the heroic Martial King's physical body to rupture. Blood splattered everywhere, and all the bones in his body began to break. If he did not have the body of Dae Sung, he would not be able to withstand such punishment. After 10 consecutive strikes, some people even thought that the heroic Martial King had already been beaten to death. There were also people who thought that Su Yin was too ruthless. The heroic Martial King came from an emperor clan, but Su Yin used all his strength to beat him with the Enforcer's staff. He did not even give the heroic Martial King any time to breathe. This was an outcome that would not end until one of them was dead. What's your name? It's so unpleasant to hear. Su Yin was enraged. He approached with the Enforcer's staff in hand and broke the heroic Martial King's spine. At the same time, he said coldly, as an elder of the Hall of Merit, you did not do anything. Instead, you framed my immortal Phoenix army. You even embezzled our immortal Phoenix army's resources for 3 whole years. Bao Kai shuddered. 3 years? It's only been a few months, okay? Yang could not react in time. The Skystar Warlord wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not. He knew very well that the Hall of Merit's resources were limited. The heroic Martial King could embezzle the resources, but he definitely did not have any extra resources to give to them. Now, Suyin directly said 3 years of resources. It was obvious that he was extorting them. He wanted the heroic martial king to pay for it in private. "You bastard," the heroic martial king roared. He gritted his teeth so hard that they broke. Where did the 3 years of resources come from? Where did they come from? However, he could not speak at all. Even if he could not hear what he was screaming about. Suyin hit him again with the enforcer's staff, smashing him squarely on the chin. His entire face was a bloody mess. Many people's hearts trembled. This was not leaving a single piece of flesh intact on the heroic martial king's body. He was beating him from all directions, one stick after another. Do you not admit it? Could it be that the immortal Phoenix Army's resources were embezzled by you alone? Su Yin was enraged. He said to everyone in the world, "Everyone, I suggest that we investigate this matter thoroughly. The heroic martial king definitely embezzled our resources. We fought at the front lines, risking our lives against the creatures of the dark world. So many of our comrades and brothers died in battle. However, as an elder of the Hall of Merit, he actually went against his conscience and embezzled our hard-earned money. This is truly intolerable." Su Yan's staff also swung down, smashing one of the heroic martial king's calves. The immortal sect was in an uproar. Many of the army's experts wanted to stand out and say something. However, they vaguely caught the indistinct anger from the immortal sect. They really did not dare to speak. The heroic martial king was terrified. Embezzling a portion of the resources was not a rare matter. After all, being an elder of the Hall of Merit was a lucrative job. However, who dared to investigate this matter? Once it was investigated, who knew how many major cases would be dug up if they investigated to the end? What courage did Su Yin eat to dare to say such a thing? If it was a normal day, he would not even know how he died. After 30 consecutive hits, the heroic martial king's flesh was lacerated. There was not a single place on his body that was unharmed. He was covered in blood. He howled in pain. It was really better to just kill himself. It was too painful. His primordial spirit was about to explode, being beaten up by a junior in front of everyone in the world. How could he raise his head in the future? "Heroic martial king, where are our resources? Hand them over immediately," Su Yin shouted angrily. "If you don't hand them over, you will be punished even more. If you hand them over now, you could be forgiven and make up for your mistakes." I'll give, the heroic martial king roared. This was equivalent to spending money to buy his life. He was willing to pay for 3 years. If Su Yin continued, his injuries would be so serious that his body and soul would be destroyed. He had no choice but to open his storage space and take out a void pouch. Su Yin scanned the void pouch and shouted angrily, "Who are you trying to cheat? How could the resources in here be enough? Tell me, did you steal them? Take them out right now." Su Yin struck down again. The heroic martial king was like a mad demon. He was definitely doing this on purpose. He did not wait for him to gather the resources. He had no choice but to take out a void pouch. This was the resources he embezzled these days. He also took out a portion of his personal stash to satisfy Su Yan's 3 years of resources. Dong, dong. In the next moment, the enforcer's rod pressed down once more, and a series of violent sounds rang out as it exploded on Valiant King's body. The heroic martial king was extremely angry. He was so angry that his primordial spirit was distorted. Su Yin was not honest at all. He had already spent the money, but Su Yin had no intention of showing mercy. All the bones in his body were shattered. His body was also riddled with holes. His primordial spirit was dim and could be extinguished at any time. Daesung is Daesung. His skin is rough, and his flesh is thick. Bao Kai commented, if it was a saint, he would have been killed by Su Yin in one strike. However, the heroic martial king had held on for so long, and his body was still intact. Kong Xing did not say anything. He knew very well that it was impossible to kill the heroic martial king. Su Yin also knew that Daesung's skin was thick, and it would not be easy to kill him. However, every strike of the rod shattered his bodily functions. The heroic martial king was now an empty shell. He was severely damaged and could only be healed with rare and miraculous medicine. Heavens, his realm has fallen. Someone was shocked to find that the heroic martial king's blood-stained body was leaking life essence. Accompanied by the light of the great Tao, the energy in this area was extremely dense. This was the essence of Daesung's flesh and blood. It was too difficult. Some nobles gasped. It was not just a drop in realm. It was very likely that he had fallen from Daesung's peak to several minor realms. It was simply destroying the heroic martial king's Tao foundation. The heroic martial king had really gone mad. His realm fell one after another, and he almost fell to Daesung's beginner realm. What are you screaming for? Su Yin swung his staff again, causing King Heroic Martial's head to crack. Even his primordial spirit leaked a large amount of soul energy amidst the rumbling. Many people trembled. His primordial spirit was seriously damaged, and his body was covered with cracks. His realm had fallen to Daesung's first layer. The heroic martial king could no longer make a sound. He was beaten to death by the enforcer rod. In the end, Su Yan's final strike did not come down. He shouted coldly, "It's not too late to mend the pen after the sheep have been lost. Seeing that you're still quite sincere, I'll spare you one strike." The heroic martial king's body suddenly trembled and no longer made a sound. He had fainted from anger. His body kept spurting out blood, and his lungs felt like they were about to explode. He had paid such a huge price and was only spared one strike. It was as if he was giving alms to himself. The people in the surroundings were extremely speechless. He had beaten him so many times and was only spared one strike. What was the difference between this and not being spared? In short, the heroic martial king was too miserable. His flesh had turned into mud, and it was unknown how many years he would need to recuperate. Most importantly, his realm had fallen. Many people's gazes were fixed on Su Yan. The way they looked at him was completely different. This lower realm expert was truly ruthless. The heroic martial king was almost beaten to death, and the enforcer rod was almost broken. Bao Kai strode around with its big claws and big fat face. It wandered around the heroic martial king. It really wanted to say, "What's the point of leaving one for him? Let me take the last hit and smash his head." Report. Suddenly, a hurried roar came from the outside world. A soldier whose entire body was covered in blood rushed over. His speed was extremely fast, and he even carried a large banner on his back. This was the immortal sect spy in charge of collecting information. He was very hurried and anxious as he roared. Report, a large group of experts from the Dark Realm Supreme race has arrived. They brought a young man from their race, and are suspected to be a peerless genius of the Supreme race. What? A peerless genius of the Supreme race. The whole place was in an uproar. Kong Xing's face sank slightly. A group of experts from the Dark Realm came to protect a young man. The probability of this happening was very small. If they really did appear, the peerless genius of the Supreme race would definitely sweep through all the geniuses on the battlefield and ruthlessly suppress the immortal world's momentum. They had to send out a young Overlord to contend against them. "Where is he now?" a noble asked. The reporting spy's expression was anxious as he said, "They come from the Dark Realm. I can't track them down, but they said they would challenge our world's geniuses." The Dark Beast race. The immortal sect was in chaos. This was the most powerful supreme race of the Dark Realm, equivalent to a peerless genius of the Emperor race. "Lord Commander," a noble roared, "we should immediately gather the young overlords and suppress the dark race's geniuses." The matter was very serious. A group of important figures from the Dark Realm came to protect a young man. They were clearly important figures and couldn't be careless. "I already know." Immortal Mo Hongwei's voice exploded. "Now, the King Conferral battle is about to begin in the King Conferral battle. Currently, the Emperor race's geniuses have gathered in the King Conferral battle. I've already spread the news. Soon, the Emperor race's geniuses will come." The peerless race of the Dark Realm came to attack, so the Emperor race's geniuses had to appear. The battle to become a king is about to begin. Kong Xing was astonished. He looked at Su Yan. He should be preparing to become a king. Once a king was bestowed, the meaning would be completely different. He would receive large amounts of cultivation resources every year, and he wouldn't lack immortal sources either. If the title was special, the resources he would receive would be completely different. Of course, this was very difficult. It was extremely difficult to obtain a special title. However, Kongxing felt that Su Yin had some hope of obtaining the title of War King. Of course, there were even more terrifying titles than War King, but such titles might not appear even once in tens of thousands of years. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Of course, once a king was bestowed, it would be impossible for the Xian people to target Su Yin without restraint. One had to know that the king commander of the world was the Tao protector of the imperial city. Su Yin, they're probably here to find you, Bao Kai said in a low voice. These days, the Dark Realm had released vicious words, saying that they wanted to dispatch geniuses to suppress Su Yin. Chapter 1812. The celestial sects were in heated discussion. The arrival of the Dark World's peerless prodigy was no small matter. This was also the only young expert protected by the Dark World in the 10 years since the start of the war. Without a doubt, this was a heavy weight. They couldn't afford to be careless. Some people also looked at Su Yin. This was the person who killed Xian Yu of the Deity Cave. What kind of power was the Deity Cave? If it weren't for the Deity Cave and the Xian people, this news would have spread long ago. Su Yin would definitely become a powerful young expert of the celestial world. His combat power was not weak, but he shook his head when he thought about how he had just entered the Sage Realm. According to the information gathered by the spies, the peerless prodigy should be at the peak of the Sage Realm. Su Yin was not qualified to represent the celestial world and fight against the Dark World's prodigy. Let's go. Kongxing waved his hand. He had a feeling that the Dark World attack would most likely stop. During this time, they had to be on high alert and not make any mistakes. On the way back, Su Yin handed the 2 void pouches that he had extorted to Yang Hui. Well done. Yang Hui laughed out loud, patted Su Yin's shoulder hard, and let out a breath of resentment. Kongxing also laughed. If Su Yin hadn't discovered the trap along the way, he wouldn't have been able to successfully suppress the 5 Xian people Daesong. In short, the Xian people had suffered too much. The 5 heavily injured Daesong had been thrown into the dark prison. What awaited them was a long period of suffering. Su Yin, these resources are enough for the Deity Phoenix army. Take them. Yang Hui only wanted the resources that he had extorted from Su Yin. Yang Hui handed it over to Su Yin and smiled. This is not a small amount. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. The heroic Martial King has suffered too much. With his injuries, he won't be able to stand up again for at least a year. It's a pity that we didn't convict him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have let him off so easily. Su Yin snorted. The heroic king had set him up. It was a pity that they didn't have any evidence against him. The Xian people's foundation is too strong. Yang Hui sighed. After all, they are from the monarch race. Su Yin, you must be careful in the future. They said that the coronation battle is about to begin. You must be prepared. Coronation? Su Yin clenched his fists tightly. If he wanted to establish himself in the immortal world, he had to become a king. However, he was not ready to go to the immortal realm yet. He had to discuss this matter with the mysterious skeleton. The waters of the immortal realm were too deep. One wrong move, and he would die. He calculated the time and found that Zhixiao Fairy was about to finish her breakthrough. When the time came, they could go to the immortal world together and take care of each other. Su Yin, Kongxing, if you can get the Guardians, Guardians, if use. Kongxing's words reassured Su Yin. Yes, King City was the Guardians. I wonder how long the Guardian will be in seclusion. Yang Hui said worriedly. The situation in the capital was also very complicated. The various major factions in the city were entrenched, and the immortal race also had a strong foundation. In short, Su Yin going to King City would be risky. He had to be fully prepared. I need to break through as soon as possible. My current realm is still too far away. Su Yin said to himself. He was currently at the 6th level of the Sage Realm. After 10 years of fighting, Su Yin had accumulated enough. When he was free, he could break through several small realms in a short time. Su Yan's foundation was too solid. It wasn't a big deal for him to advance by leaps and bounds. But the premise was that he had enough celestial source. Without it, he could only be an ascetic. But the celestial realm was too dangerous. He had to enter the Daesong realm within a certain period of time. He needed celestial source, a large amount of celestial source. He estimated that to become a 7th-level sage, he would need about 500 to 600 caddies of celestial source. If it was the 8th or 9th level, the amount of celestial source required would be too large. The amount of celestial source required for each realm would double, especially when he entered the Daesong realm. According to Su Yan, he would need to take out 10 times more celestial source, and this was a conservative estimate. Thus, Su Yan needed a large amount of celestial source. It would be hard to satisfy him without more than 10,000 caddies. His accumulation was too frightening. 1,300 caddies of celestial source. Su Yan finished checking the heroic Martial King's void pouch. His eyes flashed with joy. There was also a large amount of demonic transformation pills. Su Yan had no use for them, so he gave a large amount to Bao Kai. Only 1,000 caddies. That's too little. Bao Kai was worried. They needed a large amount of celestial source. Where could they get it? If they wanted to break through quickly, they needed celestial source. If they swallowed celestial spiritual energy, how many years would it take to break through a small realm? They couldn't wait. The enemy wouldn't give them that much time. This time, if the Battle King didn't come in time, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Dark World attacks are slowing down. This battle is probably going to end soon. Skystar Battle King's eyes scanned the vast outer realm. There were fewer shouts, and the Dark World's attacks were slowing down. No one wanted to see the 11th battlefield here. The Celestial World already had 10 major battlefields. Once there were 11 battlefields here, the Celestial World would have to bear even more pressure from the Dark World. Battle King. Suddenly, a figure rushed over from afar. He was riding a strange beast that reeked of blood. He quickly rushed to the Battle King's side. "What's the matter?" Skystar frowned. The Dark World attacks were slowing down. The Immortal Phoenix army had time to breathe. They didn't need to participate in the battle for a while. This was a period of rest. "Not good, Battle King," the person hurriedly said. "The Dark Race sent a group of experts. They're outside our camp." "What?" Skystar's expression changed. He was stunned. Didn't they say they were here to challenge the Celestial World's prodigies? Why did they choose to come to the Immortal Phoenix army? After all, the Immortal Phoenix army wasn't guarding the Celestial World's army. If the Dark World's young prodigies really came to challenge them, they wouldn't directly charge into their territory. Bao Kai trembled. They were really coming for Su Yan. This was a prodigy of the Dark World's supreme royal family. He wasn't someone to be trifled with. Su Yan didn't have the domain of a Saint Realm consummate yet. Once they met, it would be a fierce battle. "Go!" Battle King roared. He spread his arms and tore open a space-time rift. They returned to the Immortal Phoenix army at an extremely fast speed. Even from afar, they could already see terrifying figures covered in dense black fur entrenched outside the Immortal Phoenix army one after another. There were a total of 5 terrifying existences from the Dark World Supreme Race. A great battle had already erupted in front of them. It was like 2 cosmic stars were colliding. The sky darkened and the sun and moon lost their light. Roar! East Demon roared into the sky. His immeasurable saint body was cruelly suppressed. His body cracked and could die at any time. Boom! East Demon activated his strongest combat power. His immeasurable saint aura was vast and mighty, tearing apart the entire void. This attack was extremely terrifying. Immeasurable saint aura continuously bombarded forward and gathered into a huge palm print. However, the outcome was a little cruel. No matter how terrifying his power was, a palm covered in black hair blocked all of his immeasurable saint aura. "You can't do it. You don't have enough power." A cold and deafening voice exploded. The black hand glowed and forcibly collapsed the immeasurable saint aura that filled the sky. Moreover, some power attacked East Demon. causing his body to tremble violently. If he hadn't turned his body into a holy bell at the critical moment to block the power of this terrifying expert, he would have been seriously injured. Outside's expression was serious. East Demon hadn't broken through for long. The gap between their realms was already large enough. However, East Demon's strength was still unable to block this person. As expected of a peerless prodigy of the Dark World, it was a young prodigy of the Dark Clan. His figure was tall and sturdy, and his aura was so cold that it was suffocating. However, this dark beast was a little different from the others. The hair on his head was golden, as if golden flames were jumping and burning. This was clearly a king beast of the Dark Beast clan. War King's expression was serious. This was a true king beast. In terms of status, it was equivalent to the core prodigies of the immortal cave in the celestial world. One had to know that these people were the strongest and most precious seeds of the celestial world over a long period of time. They were the greatest wealth of the celestial world. East Demon's expression was also cold. He didn't say a word. If he was standing at the peak of the Saint Realm, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Too weak. Did I come here for nothing? He shook his head and spoke the language of the celestial world. Why don't you and I spar? Suyin walked out. The Dark Clan prodigy's aura was so cold that it was suffocating. His eyes fell on Su Yin, and suddenly, a terrifying flame rose from his body. He could clearly see how powerful Su Yin was. Even Su Yin's body was surging with demonic energy, causing his expression to become even colder. He waved his hand and said, "Come, my time is limited. Do your best. Don't disappoint me." Su Yin walked towards the battlefield step by step. His eyes were also cold. The Undying clan's progenitor had been killed by the Dark Beast clan's experts. His heart was filled with killing intent. At the same time, within the celestial sect, the interdomain teleportation array opened. One figure after another walked out, bringing with them a mysterious aura. They brought a great deal of pressure to those around them. More than 10 young experts walked out one after another, causing quite a commotion within the celestial sect. These were definitely experts from the royal city. The king-naming war was about to begin, and the royal city was bound to have a gathering of prodigies. Most of the first batch of prodigies had extraordinary identities. They wore ancient armor, and their essence, chi, and spirit leaked out. Behind them, ancient Buddhas, ancient immortals, and other terrifying visions appeared. The pressure they gave people was even stronger. The Dark Clan's prodigies. I want to see how strong they are. The king-naming war is imminent. If we can kill the Dark Clan's prodigies, the title of king will be even more dazzling. I'm looking forward to it. I heard that on this battlefield, there's an expert from the wasteland of the lower realm who killed Xianyu. I want to see him immediately. It said that this person also received a series of inheritances from the burial cave. He even has the burial cave's body. The burial cave is already a thing of the past. Even in its strongest era, it couldn't compete with the Immortal's Cave. They were conversing and discussing with great confidence. They were also full of confidence. Their background was definitely not small. Chapter 1813. The Immortal Gate was not calm. Although only a dozen or so geniuses had come, their influence was still great. The strength of this group of youngsters is not simple at all. The soldiers who had experienced hundreds of battles were all shocked. They discovered a figure whose blood was exuberant to the extreme. His blood flowed like a great drum, pressuring him to the point of suffocation. His heart felt like it was about to explode. Without a doubt, this person's physical body was too powerful and shocking, like a sleeping true dragon that couldn't be provoked. Would it be difficult for such a person to be conferred the title of king? Among them, a woman was even more eye-catching. Her style was peerless, and her temperament was cold and noble. Her silver eyes shone, and some cultivators who met her gaze felt like their bodies were about to explode. They felt like her eyes were like comets in the universe, about to press down and suppress them all. The proud daughter of heaven from the starry sky, Emperor race. Someone exclaimed in shock, causing the surrounding cultivators to go wild. This was a proud daughter of heaven from an emperor race. Regardless of identity or background, she was too shocking. Moreover, she was also an exceptional beauty. The Immortal Gate was in an uproar. Many people came to watch. Without a doubt, the proud daughter of heaven from the starry sky emperor race would attract attention no matter where she went. Even the dozen or so young cultivators here were all outstanding geniuses of the King City. However, all the glory was now stolen by Starry Night. She was like a goddess of the stars, the moon surrounded by the stars. Her temperament became more and more noble. Her silver eyes seemed to be able to draw out the sea of stars. Her snow-white skin flowed with brilliant stellar radiance, brilliant and dazzling. Starry Night, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have asked you to come. Look, the limelight has been stolen by you. This figure whose chi and blood were exuberant to the extreme spoke. His appearance was valiant, and he was extremely divine and extraordinary. Immortal radiance leaked out from his pores, and the sound of his blood flowing became even more shocking, as if a vast ocean was surging. Without a doubt, this expert from the Cien people was exceptionally powerful and extraordinary. It was very likely that the blood of a world-shocking emperor flowed in his body. Brother Xianjing must be joking. Starry Night's snow-white skin flowed with stellar radiance, and her silver eyes released divine radiance. She looked down at the immortal heavenly domain from high above. She shook her head and said, "The former mortal world, now the wasteland, has proven that it is impossible for this world to separate from the immortal world. It has left behind a mess that needs us to deal with." Xianjing laughed in spite of himself and said, "They probably want to take over this realm. In any case, no matter how weak the human realm is, it cannot fall into the hands of the dark realm. It's a pity that he's crippled. There's no point in having him." On Starry Night, she was like a goddess from the celestial world. Her snow-white body emitted starlight as she said softly, "I haven't seen the Burying Heaven Cave from back then either. I have to say that the Burying Heaven Cave was very powerful back then. It was able to produce geniuses that could contend with the strongest heaven's pride of heaven of my race." "Didn't he still die in battle?" Xianjing laughed. There was a peerless genius from the starry sky monarch race who had been sleeping in the core region of the celestial cavern for far too long. He had participated in the immortal devil battlefield several times and was truly powerful. Even Xianjing was filled with admiration for him. "I heard that a prodigy from the wasteland in the lower realm obtained Huaping's ultimate skill." Xianjing's gaze was cold. Xianyu was also hibernating outside the Heaven's Cave. However, he had been hibernating for much longer than Xianyu. If it wasn't for the fact that the great war of immortals and demons was about to begin, Xianjing and Xian, you wouldn't have chosen to come out of seclusion. Even Huaping's senior apprentice brother was killed by a prodigy from my race. What can a mere prodigy amount to? Starry Night didn't think much of it. As a prodigy from the monarch race and a prodigy from the Heaven's Cave, she was naturally full of arrogance. She said coldly, "After we suppress the prodigy from the supreme race, we'll see what kind of trash this person is." He actually managed to kill Xianyu. Starry Night and the others were all hibernating outside the Heaven's Cave, so they all knew each other. Reporting, another scout barged in from the Heaven's Gate and shouted, "Stop the investigation. We found traces of the Dark Race near the Immortal Phoenix Army. Let's go." It just so happens that a cultivator from the lower realm is also in the Immortal Phoenix Army. Xianjing waved his hand and led the young elites toward the Immortal Phoenix Army. They had all come with a mission and wanted to suppress the Dark Race elites as soon as possible. After all the prodigies from the Royal City were qualified to participate in this mission. Immortal in the Phoenix Army, a great battle was about to break out. Bao Kai was worried. After all, Su Yin still wasn't at the peak of the Saint Realm. He was several minor levels below the prodigy of the Dark Race, and there's already a certain level of difference between them. This time, the prodigy that the Dark Race had dispatched was extremely terrifying. Su Yin had massacred many of the Dark World's young elites in the past 10 years, and had already angered the Supreme Race. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent out their king beast. This kind of creature was comparable to the peerless prodigies of the Heaven's Cave's core region. The Sky Astral War King was holding the line. If Su Yan was defeated, he would immediately come to his aid. This wasn't an unfair battle in the first place. Su Yan didn't say a word. He took large strides forward, wanting to witness the supreme battle prowess of the Dark World's younger generation. Come, the Dark Race's king beast said in a low voice. It stood tall in its human form, and its demonic body was covered in black fur. Its expression was exceptionally cold, and its deep eyes were like a bottomless abyss. Within them, the scene of a sky full of stars being destroyed could be seen. There was nothing to say. Su Yan interrupted. He punched out, and boundless holy power erupted from his body. In an instant, the entire universe exploded as he rushed towards the Dark Race's king beast. Not bad. The Dark Race's king beast's eyes widened. In a battle between experts, the moment Su Yan closed in, it immediately sensed the surging power within Su Yan's body. It was very powerful and flourishing. This was definitely an extraordinary prodigy of the celestial world. The Dark Race's king beast roared, and its ink-black figure awakened. With a loud roar, the heavens exploded, and a dark aura filled the air. The vast outer world was as dark as ink, and one couldn't even see their own fingers. PFFF, some of the nearby saints screamed and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. They were almost roared to death. The aura of this Dark Race's king beast became more and more terrifying. It rushed forward, powerful and domineering. The moment it raised its hand, the world trembled, and the celestial Tao was crushed to the point of exploding. Its powerful aura could be seen at a glance, and it almost suppressed Su Yan. Boom! Su Yan's hand formed a fist seal, and he erupted with his most powerful battle strength. His fist seal was huge, and he faced the Dark Race's king beast. Boom! Heaven and earth exploded, and the universe was turned upside down. The stars in the sky were blasted to the ground. Turbulent energy ripples surged, sweeping in all directions. Yang Hui staggered back. His blood was in chaos from the shock, and his eyes flashed with a trace of horror. Bao Cai's heart was in turmoil. What a terrifying figure. They both erupted with terrifying attacks, and the collision created a world-destroying storm. For Su Yan and the Dark Race's king beast, once they erupted, it was truly amazing. They could kill a powerful enemy in one move. Kong Xing's face sank. This was an extremely terrifying Dark Race's king beast. He knew very well how powerful Su Yan was. It seemed that this was going to be a fierce battle. Roar! The Dark Race's king beast roared, and its dark eyes flashed with excitement and brutality. Having found its prey, it seemed to have gone crazy. An even more ferocious palm erupted. Die! Su Yan was also roaring loudly. His aura swallowed the starry sky, and his majestic appearance was terrifying. From afar, it looked like an endless scorching sun was burning. His fist was like a rainbow as it bombarded the huge black palm that was pressing down. At the same time, his entire body attacked forward. Very good. The Dark Race's king beast roared. For a short time, its energy soared to the extreme. Its black hair was dancing in the wind, and a black storm was unleashed, pressing down on Su Yan. The two powerful beings fought together, creating a horrifying torrent. Their battle made the world tremble and the color change. Every time the two powerful beings unleashed their power, the sky would collapse, and many people would find it hard to look at them. The surging storm was becoming more and more vast, affecting the sky and the earth. Even the outer space was shaking. The battlefield was sometimes blazing, and sometimes it was as dark as ink. Su Yan had encountered a powerful enemy. He and the Dark Race's king beast had fought for over a dozen rounds, but there was still no clear winner. Roar! The Dark Race's king beast roared. Its black hair shone, especially its head. Its golden hair danced, and it was as if 100,000 immortal swords had been unsheathed. It pierced the heavens, and a terrifying might scattered down, rushing straight at Su Yan. Many soldiers were scared. Their bodies felt like they were being torn apart, and the pain was unbearable. How terrifying was this power? Even the heavens were shattered. The dark race's king beast's head was terrifying, and strands of golden hair were like immortal swords. Do you have the Ironhead technique? Su Yan was furious. His fist shone, and his energy swallowed rivers and mountains, dominating the world. He erupted with the thousand-world fist, and his fist smashed forward. The invincible might was unstoppable, and his fist suppressed everything. The sky full of swords collapsed. Looking from afar, it was like a cosmic comet that could destroy the world. It became more and more violent, and its divine might was unstoppable. This fist caused the dark race's king bee's head to rumble and tremble. It was almost split in two. Pooh! It coughed out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. It was shocked. What kind of constitution was this? Bao Kai was also shocked to see Su Yan's fist bleeding. He was also injured. What kind of monster did he encounter? Could it be the most outstanding overlord of the Dark World Supreme Race? The Thousand-World Fist had erupted, but Su Yan was still injured. One could imagine how powerful this Dark Race's king beast was. However, the Dark Race expert in charge of guarding the Dark Race was also shocked. Could it be a peerless genius from the immortal cave of the immortal world? Su Yan's eyes were filled with fanaticism as he rushed forward. The Dark Race's king beast's face was cold. This person wanted to kill it, but it had to admit that Su Yan was strong. He was on the same level as it was. The battle broke out again. The two experts fought together, and blood was spilled with every punch. The battle was fierce and tragic. The two experts fought for hundreds of times, but it was still difficult to determine who would win. Su Yan's expression was cold. This was the strongest overlord he had encountered since he stepped onto the battlefield. He had to kill it. Boom! Su Yan struck out with his palm. Sword radiance flowed and surged, cutting through the light of time. It shattered all the great Tao and order as it rushed toward the Dark Race's king beast. This sword radiance was too sharp, revealing the endless power of calamity. It condensed into an immortal slaying sword, making the Dark Race's king beast feel a terrifying pressure. Ancient sight, demonstration sight. The Dark Race's king beast chanted sutras. Its figure suddenly blurred and turned into a body of nothingness. It was also like a black tornado about to collapse between heaven and earth. Su Yan's sword radiance could not lock onto it. It lost its coordinates. This was the race's innate ability, and it was quite abnormal. Slash. Su Yan roared and slashed. Time operated. The bright sword radiance tore through the sea of stars, destroying everything. It covered all directions and was about to slash out the hidden Dark Race's king beast. Heaven and earth exploded, and the source area was shattered. But what made people's hair stand was how powerful this killing power was. But the Dark Race's king beast was unharmed. A blurry black figure appeared in the shattered land, standing tall in the destroyed area. Its expression was cold. Of course, if one looked carefully, there was a streak of blood on its head. It was clearly injured. Su Yan rushed over again, his fighting strength berserk. The reincarnation heaven-punishing Tao appeared, and a sword slashed through time. Two great secret arts erupted at the same time. "You've angered me," the Dark Race's king beast roared. It was truly angered. Its body swelled endlessly and began to blur. The ancestral blood within its body was boiling. In a short period of time, heaven overflowing dark light gushed out. It was also accompanied by a especially terrifying dark, great Tao energy flow. In an instant, the heavens collapsed and a rain of blood poured down. The aura of destruction erupted, covering the entire world and evolving into a grand dark prison. Judgment of darkness. The Dark Race's group of great figures turned pale. What kind of freak did they encounter? However, the Dark Race's ancestral technique erupted. This battle could also end. Under the judgment of darkness, even if it was Immortal Cave's matchless heavenly talents, they would still suffer grievances. This ancestral technique had previously slaughtered many of Immortal Cave's matchless geniuses. Chapter 1814. Heaven and earth crumbled as the apocalypse descended. Endless darkness poured down, covering the ruined world and turning it into a dark prison. The scene inside was horrifying, as if a demon king was roaring. The gates of hell opened. Oh no! Yang Hui's expression changed. This was the ultimate technique of the dark world. Where did this beast king come from? War King's expression was also serious. The dark matter in the darkness was like an ocean that could easily swallow the flesh and essence of a saint. Being in it was worse than death. The dark matter churned in the sky. This was only the lowest level of killing. All kinds of terrifying supernatural powers were unleashed. There was a terrifying black hand, a blood-red fist that could kill life, a supreme killing seal that gathered darkness, judgment of darkness, slash. The Beast King's low roar exploded, erupting with the most invincible power. It sealed the sky and judged Su Yan. Su Yan's expression changed. This Beast King had mastered all kinds of ultimate techniques that were not inferior to the 10 ways of heaven punishment. He had to admit that whether it was the time slash or the reincarnation path of heaven punishment, they were not ordinary supernatural powers. But now, these supernatural powers were all blocked and suppressed by the same level of supernatural powers. The dark prison rumbled, emitting terrifying sounds of collision. The power of judgment became thicker and thicker, producing all kinds of Dark Order symbols. They scattered between heaven and earth, resonating together and pressing down on Su Yan. Roar! Su Yan roared. His body glowed, and in an instant, he was endlessly terrifying. The scripture of the universe was unleashed. It was grand and ancient, carrying the ultimate mysteries of the sun and the moon. It melted together and evolved into a chaotic sacred sea. It was as if the most powerful god of war was being nurtured within. Su Yan seemed to have returned from a deep sleep. His heaven-burying avatar erupted, and a series of supernatural powers were unleashed, evolving in the universe world. This magnificent universe was directly revived, emitting unparalleled power. Everything became blurry, and everything exploded. Nothing could be seen clearly. It was truly apocalyptic. Two unparalleled auras melted together, forming a destructive tide that tore apart the firmament and collapsed the starry sky. The group of important figures of the Dark Race were uneasy. They had formed a resistance. It was unbelievable. What kind of battle was going on? Powerful as they were, they couldn't see through it. After all, both sides were using scriptures to compete. Kill! In the end, the Dark Beast King bellowed and condensed the power of darkness into a ray of dark light that merged with the Dark Beast King's body as it charged towards Su Yan. Break again. Su Yan let out a long roar. The vast universe that he operated merged into one and penetrated into his fist. It refined all of Su Yan's power and divine arts, and it pressed forward with a loud bang. The outcome was somewhat cruel. Su Yan's fist was torn apart, and even his arm was trembling. He had suffered a heavy blow, and his entire arm had almost been torn apart. At the same time, Su Yan's body was shaking violently, and blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Just how strong was the enemy? However, the judgment of darkness was directly destroyed by Su Yan's terrifying fist. One of the figures within trembled violently, as if it had been shattered, and was sent flying. What? The expressions of the group of important figures of the Dark Race changed drastically. Even their most powerful technique couldn't suppress Su Yan. Although Su Yan had suffered injuries, the Dark Beast King's injuries were even more severe. Its entire body was sent flying. Hand over your life. Su Yan stepped out. His blood-stained body blazed, and his eyes were like lightning. He was like a heaven-splitting overlord. He brandished his fist and punched at the Dark Beast King that was sent flying for several miles. Roar! The Dark Beast King growled. Its body was clearly very weak. Its physical body instantly turned into a state of nothingness, and then turned into a stream of black particles that returned with extreme speed. He won. The soldiers of the Immortal Phoenix army shouted excitedly. Su Yan had won and forced the Dark Race's supreme heaven's pride to retreat. At the same time, Su Yan's strength also gave them a great shock. It was hard to imagine that this was a heaven's pride from the declining human world. He could even suppress a supreme heaven's pride and force it to retreat. One had to admit that he was too powerful. Buzz. Su Yan's palm glowed, and the universal scripture automatically operated. The influence of this palm was huge, and it pressed forward heavily, covering one world after another. Su Yan used his great magic power to imprison heaven and earth. The Dark Beast King's loss was too great. Even if this race came and went without a trace, Su Yan was confident that he could imprison its body. What scripture is this? As expected, the Dark Beast King was forced out by Su Yan. His face was a little cold. He had never encountered such a scripture before. He knew the various heavens' prides of the immortal world like the back of his hand. He didn't know about Su Yan, and he didn't know that there was such a scripture in the immortal world. 3 scriptures combined into one. Although it wasn't the strength of 3 scriptures combined into one, this universal scripture was more suitable for Su Yan. It could allow his battle power to explode to the strongest domain. Boom! Su Yan's palm was boundless, and it pressed down layer by layer, sealing off all the Dark Beast King's paths of retreat. Moreover, the vast power of the universal scripture sprinkled down, suppressing the Dark Beast King's body. The pressure was terrifying, and it could easily destroy its body. The Dark Beast King didn't struggle. It looked coldly at Su Yan and said, "What's your name?" "Su Yan," Su Yan said. His body glowed, and the essence of heaven and earth spewed out from his body. A pair of cold eyes looked at the Dark Beast King that he had imprisoned, and he said, "Bring out your true battle power." What's going on? The Immortal Phoenix army was in chaos. Could it be that this still wasn't the Dark Beast King's true battle power? The Skystar Battle King came to his senses. Logically speaking, with this Dark Beast King's strength, it shouldn't have been so easily suppressed by Su Yan. In fact, the Dark Beast King's aura was becoming weaker and weaker. This didn't make sense. The Dark Beast King's expression was cold, but its eyes burned with fierce flames. My true body can't come over right now. What scripture are you cultivating? Then what's the point of keeping you alive? Su Yan's expression was cold. He held the World Destroyer halberd in one hand and walked over step by step. The Dark Beast King's expression became colder and colder. Although it was only a Dark Dao body, it was still terrifying enough. It wasn't much weaker than the main body. The battle is about to end. There's no time. Leave me a trace of my primordial spirit. The Dark Beast King said in a low voice, "When the great war of immortals and demons begins, I will come and find you." Skystar Battle King was speechless. A Dark Taoist body was already so terrifying. No wonder the Dark Taoist body was from the Dark World. It wasn't an ordinary Dark Taoist body. Mentioning the great war of the immortals and demons meant that it was qualified to participate. The great war of immortals and demons wasn't something that anyone could participate in. There were only 10 spots, and the immortal world had to go through many rounds of selection. Of course, only the peerless geniuses of the Heaven's Cave had the qualifications. It was unlikely that Su Yan would be able to participate in the great war of immortals and demons. In order to enter the core area of the Heaven's Cave, the lowest requirement was to have a special king title. The second requirement was to have an invincible battle strength at the level of Daesong. Even so, the chances of entering the core area of the Heaven's Cave were extremely slim. Even for the geniuses of the outer regions, the chances of 1 out of 10 geniuses entering the core area were already very high. The core area of the Heaven's Cave was the most precious treasure of the immortal world. It was a place created by the combined efforts of all the monarch races of the immortal world. It was a place of supreme fortune. Chi. Su Yan cut off the Dark Beast King's head. His body was dyed in blood. Su Yan's majestic appearance was particularly terrifying. The strongest genius of the Dark World, who had the qualifications to participate in the great war of immortals and demons. Although it was only a Dark Dao body, Su Yan had cut off its head. If this news were spread, it would cause a terrifying shock. This was a supreme glory. A supreme glory. I will come and kill you. The Dark Beast King's head roared. It was a great humiliation. Although it did not have the strongest battle strength of its main body, it was still humiliating to have its head cut off. At the same time, it had absolute confidence that it could kill Su Yin. It believed that it had already forced him to use his maximum battle strength. Once they met, it was confident that it would be able to kill Su Yin. "I'll wait," Su Yin snorted. The Dark Beast King's incarnation directly collapsed, exploding into a black bloodlight. The group of big shots of the Dark World had a cold expression. They did not stay here for long. The great war of immortals and demons was about to begin. This was the most important thing in the Dark World. Everything else had to be put aside. The immortal world and the Dark World were the most powerful battles of the younger generation. It was related to the fate of the two worlds. Victory and defeat had a great impact. "Time to go." Su Yin took a deep breath. The war was about to end. If it was fast, it would take a few months. If it was slow, it would take a few years. The attacks of the Dark World would be slower and slower. Su Yin felt that time was limited. It was time to go back. "Su Yin, you don't seem to have been corroded by the dark matter." The sharp Kong Xing seemed to have discovered something. He stared at Su Yan's blood-stained fist without blinking. He didn't discover any dark energy. Su Yan was startled. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Kong Xing walked over and forced a Li's dark matter to isolate the surrounding environment. He said in a low voice, "It's not convenient to say. Don't feel embarrassed. You'd better pay attention to this matter. Otherwise, there will be a lot of trouble." Su Yan's heart trembled. Kong Xing had warned him. Yes, to resist the Dark World, one had to face the corrosion of the dark matter. This was a problem that even the immortal world had a headache about. But Su Yin didn't face this kind of threat. This meant that he was special enough. If he was noticed by someone, it wouldn't be a small matter. "Su Yin, prepare early." Kong Xing patted Su Yan's shoulder. The war was really about to end. The Dark Beast King had already said it. The time left for them was already very limited. It was a pity that the Guardian had been resisting the dark power for 10 years and had exhausted himself. Otherwise, Kong Xing would have recommended Su Yin to the Guardian. Perhaps Su Yin could become the Guardian's disciple. This way, Su Yin would be safe in the immortal world. It would be difficult for the Emperor family to touch him. Only half a cup of tea's time had passed. The immortal Phoenix army was not calm. A large group of experts had rushed over. There were more than 10 nobles, especially the young experts. They were mighty and powerful. They patrolled the land and looked for the Dark Race's prodigy. Where did he go? Wasn't he supposed to be in the immortal Phoenix army? Could it be that the information was wrong? A group of nobles discussed. They had barged into the immortal Phoenix army and patrolled for a long time, but they didn't see any traces of the Dark Race. The immortal Phoenix army was very disciplined. No one spoke or discussed. They didn't even move. The entire army was exuding a murderous aura. Some nobles nodded secretly. As expected, King Yingwu was secretly making things difficult for them. The immortal Phoenix army was not as weak as he said. Even if they were beaten to death, they deserved it. It was said that King Yingwu's injuries were too severe. He couldn't even get up. The hope of recovery was very slim. The Xian people most likely wouldn't give a heavily injured Daesung the best resources to recover. "I didn't see him," Kong Xing replied coldly. He didn't tell them about Su Yin. He was worried that he would get into big trouble. If he had killed an ordinary expert, it would have been fine. But the one who had died was an expert who had participated in the great war of the immortals and demons. This news couldn't be spread. If it had been anyone else in the immortal world, the world would definitely be shocked. The Immortals' Cave would directly take them in and further their studies. But Su Yin was different. By then, he might be killed before he could even touch the door of the Immortals' Cave. Bastard. Why did he disappear? Did he already leave? Didn't he say that he was here to challenge our world's prodigy? We're already here, but he actually disappeared. This is really preposterous. Are you joking with us? Some prodigies were furious. They had come all the way here, but the Dark Race had disappeared. In the army camp, some soldiers frowned. The powerful Su Yin, Tai Baokai, East Demon, and Fairy Zixia didn't dare to say that they were prodigies. Prodigies were what others called them, not what they called themselves. This group of soldiers was immediately disgusted. Where is the prodigy from the wastelands of the lower realm? Let him come out and speak. Xian Jing looked down from high above. His words shook the army camp. Chapter 1815. Xian Jing's face was big, and he had his hand behind his back. Even in the once legendary Immortal Phoenix army, he still maintained the posture of an absolute powerhouse. Even if Daesong was in front of him, Xian Jing wouldn't even frown. What was Daesong? To the disciples of the Immortal Cave, he wasn't even qualified to talk to them on equal terms, although Xian Jing wasn't Daesong yet. After all, was it really that difficult for him to step into Daesong's realm? His deafening words reverberated in the army camp. No one spoke. This group of powerful nobles knew which one of them wasn't to be trifled with. Heroic Martial King had almost been beaten to death. He had been beaten a total of 49 times. Now that he thought about it, the scene was quite interesting. Xian Jing frowned. No one responded to him. Yang Hui snorted in his heart. What lower realm? Why do they call it that? They were clearly looking down on him. They even asked Su Yin to speak. Did they know whose Dao body Su Yin had just killed? If they said it, they would be scared to death. In any case, without the Sky Star War King's orders, no one would say a word. In the cold and austere army camp, the smell of blood was pungent. The nobles didn't dare to criticize them. They couldn't control this group of hot-blooded youths, but no one in the history of the Immortal Phoenix army didn't respect them. They used to be one of the top 10 armies and had great achievements. Although they had declined and weren't as powerful as they were in their prime, they still couldn't criticize them. Are you all mute? Starry Night's arrogant and noble face was covered in frost. Her silver eyes scanned the surroundings. She was extremely disgusted by the large group of soldiers who reeked of blood. She didn't even want to breathe the air here. It was too filthy. The large group of soldiers were furious, and their chests exploded. What was with her gaze? She was clearly looking down on them. She looked down on them, and it could even be said that she was disgusted. Were they that bad? They fought on the front lines for the Guard Garden. But now, they were being looked down on by the most precious treasure of the Guard Garden. They were all furious. But for Starry Night, the Immortal Cave was the main force against the Dark World. Killing a bunch of trash from the Dark World was not as glorious as killing a heavenly son of heaven from the Dark World. They were not on the same level at all. Why aren't you answering? Xian Jing coldly shouted. His entire body surged with energy and blood, rumbling fiercely. It was as if he wanted to suppress this group of soldiers. However, as soon as this aura was released, it disappeared without a trace. A figure with an extremely terrifying stench of blood suddenly appeared in the lower realm. Just his back view alone was enough to make the group of Monarch City paragons tremble in fear. Even though it was Starry Night, she could still feel the peerless pressure. She had an uncontrollable urge to kneel down and worship him. Boom. However, she was too unordinary. An artifact rushed out from the crown of her head, and it surged with forbidden radiance. It was incomparably resplendent, and it was difficult to see its exact form. It blocked off the War King's intimidation. Xian Jing was also like this, wielding a great weapon. This was an Emperor Dao heavenly weapon, as well as one of the most powerful weapons. It isolated the Battle King's Sky Star's pressure. What's with all this noise? Kong Xing shouted sternly. Don't you know where you are? If there's nothing else, leave immediately. After saying this, Kong Xing left. This caused Xian Jing and Starry Night's expressions to change greatly. They were from the deity's cave, so who dared to not give them face? What right does a War King have to berate us? Starry Night's aura became even more noble. As expected of a heavenly daughter from an Emperor clan, her expression didn't change even when facing a War King. She even questioned him. It was quite awe-inspiring. Wait until you become a War King, then talk to me again. Kong Xing coldly said, You guys are really not qualified now. Starry Night was furious. Not qualified? Who was he talking about? Was the title of War King so amazing? However, the group of kings who had followed them to watch the battle shook their heads. War Kings were really amazing. The prodigies of the deity's cave were indeed very powerful, but if they wanted to be War Kings, they couldn't do so without battle achievements. Su Yin and the others had fought for 10 years on the battlefield, slaughtering countless creatures of the Dark Realm. Easter Demon and the others had also killed a number of prodigies and overlords. Perhaps they were all qualified to be war kings. Stop right there. Speak clearly. Xianjing wouldn't let this matter rest. He strode forward, his cold eyes glaring angrily at the Astral War King. Retreat. In an instant, a large group of soldiers from the Immortal Phoenix army roared into the sky. Their vitality surged, and their essence, energy, and spirit soared into the heavens. In an instant, they formed a battle team, their influence causing the entire army camp to tremble. Who are you talking about? Starry Night was completely enraged. A group of dirty soldiers covered in blood dared to block their path. Retreat 5 steps. The large group of soldiers were as cold as gods and demons tearing apart the earth. Their essence, energy, and spirit merged into one, turning into an overflowing immortal phoenix. It spread its wings and split open the entire sky. Xianjing's expression changed slightly. This group of soldiers wanted to use force, but he still pointed at them and said, "Be more polite. She comes from the deity's cave. Retreat 5 steps." A terrifying divine sound once again exploded between heaven and earth. The entire army camp was filled with killing power, pressing down on Xianjing and the others. Otherwise, kill without mercy. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled. The sun and moon dimmed, and the wind and clouds changed color. Boundless bloody light swept down, covering heaven and earth. No one doubted their words. The War King had already ordered them to leave. If they still didn't leave, or even disobeyed the War King's orders, a group of soldiers working together would be enough to kill them. One had to realize that there were more than 1,000 soldiers in the army camp. If they worked together to revive, their battle prowess would be terrifying beyond compare. If they resisted, the commanders of the army camp would also be forced to take action. The group of kings smiled bitterly. They'd already caused such a ruckus. Xianjing was truly angered. He didn't even give face to the deity's cave. His expression was extremely gloomy. A king warned them through sound transmission. If they really dared to use force here, they really would be directly suppressed and killed. This was the Immortal Phoenix army. Even if they didn't say who was behind them, they still knew. The Guardians wouldn't fear their background. Even if Elder Xian stood out, only those with enough weight would have the right to speak with the Guardians. This was the army camp, the battlefield. It wasn't a place where they could act as they wished. At this moment, an expert from the Xian people hurriedly rushed over, reporting a major matter. What? They left. Why didn't you stop them? Xianjing's expression suddenly sank. Su Yin had gone to the deity gate, and it seemed like he was preparing to leave. The Xian people expert who came to report smiled bitterly. Stop them? The heroic king had almost been beaten to death by Su Yin. It seemed like they didn't know about this at all. Let's go. Quick, stop them. We can't let them escape. Xianjing shouted harshly. They fled as soon as they saw us. No wonder the War King stopped us just now. He was buying time for them. Let's go quickly. The War King, is it? When I become the War King, I'll get my revenge. On the starry night, flames of fury burned in her eyes. She had lost too much face. She was a proud and noble woman. So how could she swallow this insult so easily? A large group of experts retreated. Yang Hui was furious. He roared. Su Yin shouldn't have attacked just now. The surrounding soldiers nodded. If Su Yin hadn't killed the Dark Race Prodigy's Dao body, and if they had encountered the Dark Race Beast King instead, they would have been killed instantly. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. Su Yin and the others had already gone to the deity gate, preparing to leave through it. Just now, Kong Xing urged us to leave. Did something happen? Bao Kai asked. Hearing this, Su Yin thought for a moment, then said, The Dark Race is attacking. Just now, didn't the experts of the deity gate say that they wanted to gather the prodigies of the King City to fight them? I'm guessing that the experts of the King City have come. That definitely won't miss the Xian people. Kong Xing didn't want the battle between him and the Xian people to become more and more brutal. Su Yin should be more cautious now. What was the big deal about killing a few stinky fish of the Xian people? You must become a king. You need a large amount of immortal source. Our cultivation levels are too low. Su Yin, the immortal source you have should be enough for you to break through to the pinnacle of the saint realm. Bao Kai said, as long as one became a king, they would have status in the deity realm and even land. Su Yin frowned. It wasn't necessarily enough. He needed too much immortal source to break through. After all, his body was special. To nourish the power of 10,000 physiques and turn them into treasures of 10,000 realms. Su Yan's physical body had to become a daysong. Su Yan, how strong is that dark race beast king? East Demon asked with a serious expression. His incarnation is very strong. It forced me to use my strongest combat power. Who knows how strong the real body is? Su Yan's heart was heavy. He said, let's go back and cultivate in seclusion. We'll go to the most powerful trial ground and try to climb up quickly. Immediately, Su Yan's eyes flashed with a strange light. He needed a more powerful mystique. The absolute arts he had now were not enough. He needed a true trump card, a mystique that could kill all his enemies. Emperor's suppression art. Su Yan's heart was burning with passion. It had been 10 years. The undying heavenly domain and Emperor Road's environment must have merged faster. He should be able to find the location of the orthodoxy of the golden treasure ground. Su Yan had been eyeing the Emperor's suppression art for a long time. There was also a terrifying existence sleeping there. Perhaps he could awaken it. I've passed the 8th stage of the most powerful trial ground. Su Yan, you should go to the 9th stage. The rewards of the most powerful trial ground can't be ignored. If you pass it, you'll get something amazing. Su Yan nodded. He indeed needed a strong opponent to train himself. At this moment, Su Yan was close to the exit of the Immortal Gate. There were experts guarding it. Su Yan took out the Astral Combat Monarch's Battle Token. This was the Combat Monarch's Battle Token. The experts guarding the exit didn't want Su Yan to leave. However, they couldn't help but smile bitterly when the Astral Combat Monarch's Battle Token was taken out. The heroic martial monarch's miserable look was still vivid in their minds. They had no choice but to open the exit and let Su Yan and the others leave. Let's go. Su Yan and the others rushed out. One step after another, their speed was very fast. The moment they were about to leave the Immortal Gate, Su Yan vaguely caught the killing intent blooming. His expression turned cold as he turned his head to look into the distance. Immortal Desert. Su Yan's body tensed up. Although it was just a vague outline, it was terrifying enough. Moreover, the moment Su Yan looked into the distance, it was as if he was looking at the Forbidden Ocean. In an instant, heaven and earth collapsed. It was like the end of the world. The Immortal Desert's cold eyes glanced at Su Yan. The light in his eyes was cold. It was as if the 9 hells purgatory had been opened. Billions of thunderous sounds echoed in the world. Horrifying, shocking, terrifying. In the Immortal Desert's spiritual world, 100 million feet tall Dharma body rose up. It was as if it was opening up chaos and evolving the laws of order. He was like the heavens, controlling the life and death of billions of living beings. With a single thought, he could cross billions of miles and destroy them all.